Okay. Hey, okay, hey, that's how we tell too. All right, we're on TV. This is the July 15th, 2021 meeting of the Mashpee Board of Sewer Commissioners. First order of the business is approval of our June 17th, 2021 minutes. Did y'all get a chance to read them?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of the meeting?
Okay. Oh, you can't second it. You weren't a member at the time, so we can only have, there's only 6 of us on the minutes here. Sorry about that, Art. I mean, Al. All right.
Second.
Okay, and we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, that's 6-0, Katrina. 6-0 approved.
There's 7, Tom.
No.
Oh, he
Al
can't.
can't vote because he wasn't a member. He was,
Never mind.
Chris, we introduced Chris at that meeting. What I want to do, since we got a bunch of people around here and a new member, and a guy, I still don't know who he is, I couldn't hear you from over there, but I want to go around the room here and have everybody introduce itself. And I'm going to start with the guy in the masked bandit back there. Why don't you use the mic?
Is this on? Jeff Gregg, GHD, Senior Project Manager / Project Director for GHD, working out of our Hyannis office. And I was a consultant on all the planning for.
Jeff has
Sewer
been with us
Commission.
since 1999.
Yep.
So
Before my
he's
kids
been
were
through the
born.
whole process. And then there's a guy hiding in the corner there that never likes to speak up, but you may if you'd like to, Selectman, sir.
Andrew Gottlieb from the Selectmen.
All right, if I ever heard that.
Liaison.
Andrew Gottlieb, Selectman Liaison to the Sewer Commission. All right, ladies?
I'm Anastasia Videnko. I'm the project manager for the final design. And also with us, we have Sandy Tripp, who's the project director for the final design, and Howard Butler, who's the technical lead. So they'll be listening in.
Yeah, there's both of them. All right, looking over our shoulders. All right,
We
and,
can make their heads a little bit smaller.
oh, that's great.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. I want them to be seen.
Okay, I'm Chris Gallagher.
Oh, wait a second, we need Audrey to speak up here.
Oh, okay.
I'm Sarah.
Oh, Sarah,
worries.
she's not even, see, that's how well I know.
No problem. Sarah Greenberg, project engineer for GHD.
All right,
Chris Gallagher, Mashpee Town Engineer.
all right, and the commissioners?
Ann Malone.
Joe Lyons.
And I'm Tom Fudala.
Ken Dunn.
Mike Rapaz.
Brad Petzley.
And Al Toll is our brand-new member. It was just appointed by
Welcome.
the selectmen since our last meeting, so welcome, Al. And way out in the corner there, I don't know if the TV's catching her, it's Katrina Ewing, our board secretary, and this guy.
I'm David Morris. I'm building commissioner down.
Oh, you're the guy I haven't met yet. All right. Okay, building commissioner. All right, so first item on the agenda is discussion regarding town manager objections to GHD Design Contract Amendment Number 3. This is Route 151 sewer design scope of work, which we previously changed based on discussions between our engineers and DPW's engineers, Stantec. This was, that contract was approved by the commission unanimously at our last meeting on the 17th, but I have an email that says, to Anastasia, the town has many, this is from the town manager, the town has many questions / concerns relative to the GHD Amendment 3 proposal. There are several work items considered to be unnecessarily and some cost-related items believed to be exorbitant. These items must be resolved prior to any work commencing or any payments being authorized for and by the town. And I know Anastasia offered to speak to Rodney about that, and Rodney said, oh, we could have a meeting over here that, I don't know if there was a meeting or not, because I wasn't there. Can somebody fill me in on what the problem is? I got to assume, Chris, you know what's going on there, or
Yeah.
maybe the guy with the concerns, what's the issue?
If this contract is pretty much solely to design a pipe under 151.
Well, not really.
Well, a lot.
That's the result,
what-
that's the result of the
That's the
contract,
stimulus
is
for
the 30% design, but the contract
If you
basically
want me to
includes,
speak, let me speak.
well, go ahead, but
Um,
that's not what it's about.
We reviewed it, I was asked to review it. This came about because of 151's design through DPW. So I mean, 400,000, I read the thing, I can barely understand what I'm getting for that, for one thing. For another, there's no gravity main proposed down the center of 151.
We don't know that yet.
Well, you don't, so how are you gonna design it based on, we think it might be there? You can't. So,
Yeah.
all that's shown.
That's what you're missing.
All that.
That's what
Will
you're
you just let
missing.
me finish speaking?
Well,
He has the
So,
floor, Tom.
so,
Starting from a false premise.
this is how the analysis went. So the proposed plan for sewer in that area, which was produced by GHD, shows possibly force mains, which would be low-pressure environmental horn pumps, which you might get up to 2 to 3 inches out in the road max, and probably only 2, connecting some businesses on the street. A lot of the other stuff was connected via other streets. The only other thing proposed in the road is force mains relative to pump stations. The force mains relative to pump stations most likely would be 4 to 6 inch pipes. Route 151 has a 100-foot layout, so there's 100 feet to work with. There's 35 of it, after all the sidewalks are all said and done and all the improvements, you have a 20-foot swath on one side and a 15 on the other. If you can't get a 2 to 6 inch pipe in there, you get some issues. So why design it based on a bunch of assumptions, which is, from what I read this.
No, that's what
But
you're
bottom
missing,
line,
is
that-
it's
that was
not
my
based on
advice to Rodney,
assumptions.
and his decision was to not sign it.
Well, here's the
That's
big part
about
of it
and
that
that's
you're
it.
missing.
I doubt that's gonna
and
change.
Andy will understand this, is that in order to decide what goes into that road and where it goes in, we essentially have to do a preliminary design for the entire west side of the town, which doesn't exist. What you've seen maybe is a sketch plan that was from the original, the overall 2015 plan. But we have to go in, and GHD has to go in and figure out what the flows are gonna be. There's been changes in the situation the town has relative to the Mashpee Commons since the original plan was done in 2015. We essentially have to figure out how the whole west side of the town is going to be laid out and what's going to go where before we decide, we can find out exactly what's going into Route 151, if anything. So that's the part you're missing. The project is much more that than just about the pipe in Route 151, which you can't just set in there, willy-nilly based on nothing.
I'm basing it on many, many years of experience as a
Well,
professional engineer and as a designer.
It's-
Probably more experience than anyone in the room. And so, I see what is available for space, and once you get to a final design, you don't want to put a pipe in the ground based on a preliminary design.
They're
What if
not.
you're wrong?
We're
And-
not.
And so, therefore, I think there's plenty of room to do a lot of open trench digging on that road. There's a 100-foot layout. I mean, it's huge.
We know, we have
And-
75% designs of the
And there's a
road
lot of
project.
trenchless technologies, which I've been involved in horizontal directional drilling for thousands, for lengths. This is a long, straight section, but I've gone under streams, under swamps. I mean, the past 5 years, I've done horizontal directional drilling probably at least 3 months a year. And getting under this type of material, there's a lot of ways to make it work after the fact when you have true numbers. I just don't see it, but.
The
I mean,
reason
if
for
you
the
can-
project,
if you
as
can sell it
promoted by
to-
Selectman Gottlieb, is that the road is going to be rebuilt by the DPW in 2025, 26 now. That's when the funding is scheduled. Originally, we were going to do all of Route 151, but in order not to have us have to sit for, 5 or 7 years after the state's money is spent on repaving 151 where we can't touch the pavement, Andy and the selectmen put an article in town meeting warrant to get the sewers designed and fit into that entire project so that it can be done at the same time as the road project is being done. And as I said, that is, what goes into that road is dependent on what goes where in the whole west side of the town, because it may or may not all be going up to the base or to a site on Back Road. But in any case, we need to know how much and what's going under 151 based on that overall plan of the west side. And as I recall our discussions, Andy, it was to sort of get ahead of the game on getting a piece of the work done for Phase 2.
Yeah, can I respond a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want you to take a step back for a minute, because this whole conversation sort of speaks to the larger issue that I think we need to deal with. And let me start by saying, you know, in the last 4 months, everything about the context in which the commission has been working has changed. We've gone from conceptually envisioning a project to actually having a project funded, and going from planning and evaluating options to constructing a specific facility. You have a staff resource that you've not had, and needed for a long time. You have a situation where, as a group of volunteers, having been given no meaningful resources by the town beyond the money to fund GHD's contracts, but beyond that, you know, a $100 a year budget to do some travel or go to a conference or get a subscription or some silly
Yeah,
pittance.
it's just a membership fee.
Whatever it was. But, so you now have resources, you now have a large appropriation, you now have the challenge of building the largest public works project this town has ever undertaken. And that is all good. It's all positive. We all worked hard, no one harder than you, Tom, to make that happen over the years. We're at a point now where, with all this change, there's a necessary sort of readjustment period to rethink how we do work, who does what people's responsibilities are, what makes sense from a chain of command management perspective, how do we comport everybody's responsibilities and desires with various town codes, procurement statutes, and just fundamentally good day-to-day project management. And this conversation in the last 5 minutes is a microcosm of what we're trying to avoid. The fact that we're having the town staff engineer and the sewer commission at odds about scope of the project and understanding about what we're trying to accomplish is evidence that we have some work to do to get on the same page, have the policy setters set the policy, have the staff, line staff manage on a day-to-day basis, and effectively and efficiently work with our design consultants to come up with a product that meets our collective needs. And so I think it's largely unproductive to have a back and forth in this forum about project scope and details. I think it's an important indicator that, you know, we have a resource. You may feel that Chris doesn't fully grasp what the purpose of this particular contract is. That may or may not be so, but the fact that we're this far along, you've been here now, what?
A month.
5 weeks.
5 weeks, that we haven't had the opportunity in the right place, which I would suggest this is not, to hash out these details so that he can provide recommendations to the town manager about what he should and shouldn't sign off on in his role as chief financial officer, is indicative of the fact that, you know, we just need to adjust to this new reality. And it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And, you know, I like everybody to sort of like bring the temperature down on this a little bit. And, you know, set it up in a way that you can have that conversation so that if there's things you want the engineer to know, there's things he wants you to know, there's discussions he needs to have with the GHD management team, that all happens so that these meetings can be recommendation-based, analysis-based. These are the steps that need to get approved in order for the project to move forward. He can then go about working on a day-to-day basis with your design engineers, and the project moves forward. You know, from an operations point of view, that's the target. And I think the memo, to bring up maybe a little bit of the elephant in the room here, the memo that the manager sent around, and he's on vacation, so he sent me here to talk to this on his behalf, was intended to lay that out and to help frame, from his perspective as our chief administrative officer, what he perceives after consultation with town council as the appropriate mechanisms for how we all sort out our collective roles. And admittedly, they're different than the way things were done. They should be. We're doing different things. We are resourced differently, and we are in a position to improve our operations. And that's really what I think, I hope to have some conversation with the commission about, not to get into a back and forth about whether he should or shouldn't sign this particular contract, because that's not going to get resolved here and tonight. But to lay out the framework, and hopefully commissions, if there are issues with the way Rodney laid it out, as he indicated in his memo, he'd be happy to talk to members of the commission about that. If there are not, and it's something that, as a body, the commission decides, yeah, this makes sense from the way we think things ought to operate, given the position that we're in right now, then we move forward and tomorrow start to hash out these detailed issues and bring that back to you at the appropriate time. So that's my sort of commentary. We rocketed into what was headed off to be a fairly unproductive back and forth that I think really sort of, put a fine point on why we need to have this broader conversation and what Rodney was seeking to start off. Tom, you're absolutely right. The purpose behind the appropriation of the article was to take advantage of the opportunity to potentially, if there are pipes going under the road, deal with them at the time the 151 project was going on, with the express intent of not having Phase 2, the west side portion of Phase 2, delayed by a moratorium on road cuts. And, it was done, and so that was a good thing. And that accelerated this conversation beyond where Phase 1 would normally be taking up our time. It was also done with the broad concern about not having to cut the road and not having to delay, but without a full understanding of what the options were, what the layout was, and whether there were options to deal with laying what needs to be laid, not under the road, but within the layout. And so if new information is evolving that allows you some options on how you want to deal with it, that's fine. No one's going to object to modifying the design program based on new information, new understanding of the schedule, what's possible, what's not possible. We should be doing that. So you're right, we're trying to push this thing forward for a variety of reasons, but the predominant one, not to not get caught in that road cut moratorium. But that shouldn't become the tail that wags the dog if it's driving us down a road that's not necessary or forcing us to make decisions in the short term that are necessarily done right now. And I'm just telling all of you that you and Tom, you worked alongside and with or for Rodney in his various roles. He is very committed to chain of command and, clear roles in decision-making. And he's been pretty clear that for matters around contracting and committing the town's funding, that he's going to be looking to Chris to sign off as his staff professional. I don't know how to do what you're doing. I don't know how to evaluate what you're doing. And I don't know how to evaluate what he's saying. He does. He knows how to work with you guys. He knows how to, engage with commissioners. And as the town manager, I will speak for him in this regard, because I think his memo makes it abundantly clear. That's his layout as an administrative officer. And we all need to figure out how to comport your communication and conversations so that that can happen. Neither one of us individually, and I think I can continue to speak for my board, we are not in any way using this conversation, these process conversations, as anything other than a way to ensure that we have the ability as a community to deliver a high-quality project as promised to the community on time and at the cost figure that we committed to at town meeting. This is not a turf conversation. This is not a surreptitious way to delay this project. And what I'm concerned about is if we continue to have sort of these unproductive wheel spinning that doesn't allow these necessary contracts and amendments and applications to move through the administrative process expeditiously, that we will start to get in our own way. So now is our time to address those issues and resolve them so that we can move forward. And you can do what you're charged to do under the town bylaw. Rodney can fulfill his obligations under the charter and town bylaws and state laws that govern his responsibility, and then we can all collectively assure the people of the town of Mashpee that the resources they gave us to apply to this project are being handled in a responsible, professional, day-to-day operational manner.
All right, well, here's the thing. Yeah, we do disagree. I certainly disagree with some parts of what Rodney has sent out. The Sewer Commission, as you know, has this full statutory authority over the design and construction of the sewer system, and no other body in town does. My concern in this situation is that Chris has essentially gone around the commission, speaking to Rodney, who's issued an email saying he's not going to sign anything without ever talking to the Sewer Commission. Now, talk about chain of command and communication, okay? If Chris has got a concern, and this came up earlier when he had some concerns about the design of the Phase 1 collection system, I told him to talk to GHD, and they had meetings. I think that from now on, the professional thing for Chris to do is to write down his concerns, provide them to the commission, which does have the authority in these matters, and we'll deal with it. And we'll have a conversation. But this did not go to the commission. This went around the commission, and that's not appropriate.
Well,
And it's created a problem, and it's created a matter where we're not sure if we trust Chris at this point for doing that. So we've got to resolve that issue and get back on the right track.
That'd be-
Tom, may I say
Oh,
something?
It's unnecessary.
What's that?
May I make a comment?
You may if you'd like. You may interrupt the chair.
That's okay. I don't like the way you just made that comment about we don't trust him.
No,
I-
I'm saying that doing something like that, going to Rodney without talking to us about this situation, with him and Rodney essentially making a statement to GHD that he will not approve the contract, is not appropriate, because the Sewer Commission has been left out of the conversation, and that's not appropriate. The Sewer Commission needs to be in any conversation. I mean, Chris was brought on to assist the Sewer Commission, not to go around the Sewer Commission or make problems for us. And I hope we can resolve the situation so that it doesn't turn into something like that, where we've got basically, we have our professional designers. DHD are our design professionals, not Chris. And that's who we rely on. And if Chris has issues, as I've told him, let GHD know, and I'm saying now, let everybody know in writing, so we're not doing this. Talk about communication, Andy. I mean, there was no communication there with the commission, and so we are rightfully off-put by that, and there should have been communication.
Tom, the
From
only
now on,
person
there
I've
should be
heard,
written
Tom, the only
communication.
person I've heard who said they're off-put by anything that's happened so far has been you.
Well,
And so.
okay,
and so
as the
can
chair
you-
of the
can
Sewer
you-
Commission,
can you-
absolutely.
What?
Absolutely, as the
Well,
chair of the
you
Sewer
are not the
Commission, I'm
sewer
off-put.
commission as, otherwise, these 6 of you go home, because you're wasting your time. So.
Well, I'm
the-
sorry, but,
I'm sorry, wait a minute,
you're-
Tom.
you're
So
not the Board of
this
Selectmen
is,
either.
this is the nub of the issue, that the town has invested in a staff person whose role it is to be, our agent. And, the ability of the sewer commission to engage on a day-to-day basis with matters of design is pretty limited. So you meet once a month. So I'm not quite sure, and at the last meeting, where Chris was sitting in the peanut gallery with me in the back of the room, was not engaged in any meaningful fashion in the deliberations of the commission as an outsider. I'm not quite sure what he was supposed to do other than convey to you as the chair that he had issues, but there has to be some clarity on what the roles and expectations are. You know, is it the commission's posture that all matters of substance around design in between monthly commission meetings that may or may not come up, that the chair has the discretion to adjudicate those on your behalf? Maybe it is. I don't know that it is. Is that an efficient way for this to operate? I would argue not necessarily. But, you know, you're setting this up in a way, frankly, that I'm concerned that the investment in a town's agent as a engineer becomes extraordinarily marginalized. And what I'm looking for here is how do the seven of you want the engineer, town engineer in this case, to interact with you as a body, with your staff, with your design engineers, and how that's gonna work with his reporting responsibilities to the town manager. I don't have any clarity or comfort with that relationship at the moment.
All right, let me respond. At the last meeting, Chris had been here for 7 days, and his job responsibility, as I conveyed it to him at that time, was to familiarize himself with the plans, with all the MEP reports, and also to be caught up with the project. All right? And that's an appropriate thing for his first month on the job. And as you know, the Sewer Commission does have the sole statutory authority to do the design and construction and operation and the rest relative to sewers. So, you know, that shouldn't be questioned.
If you read the memo,
issue is-
if you read the memo, it's not questioned. What is
Well,
also,
it's-
what is also, excuse
it's
me, what is
disruptive.
also laid out is as the chief administrative officer of the town manager executes contracts and approves expenditures. And, you know, he needs a process by which he has comfort in doing that. And what he's telling the commission by his memo is that he is looking to his staff person who reports to him and supports you to give him recommendations on whether something should move forward or not. How you want to, as a body, interact with him in order to everybody feel comfortable that that chain of approval is going to move or reflect everybody is something I think your commission needs to understand and come to some peace with. I think, you know, if what you're suggesting is if he had issues or concerns with a particular contract, I don't know when he's been here long enough to be free to speak his mind when his boss asks him, should I sign this or not? You know, what's the statute of limitations on that?
That's where we get into an issue, okay? You say his boss, but the boss in terms of the sewer issues is the Sewer Commission, not Rodney. All right, when it comes to signing a contract, absolutely. He is the chief acquisition, whatever you call the officer. But if there's an issue, it should be brought to the Sewer Commission, not just to Rodney, because Rodney does not have the authority that the Sewer Commission has to determine these things.
Nor has he sought to usurp that authority.
Well, I mean, it's without the communication to the commission, going around the commission, and the way the letter was written, it's disturbing in terms of a process that's being set up that, in effect, tells the commission that even though we have the sole statutory authority to do all of this stuff, that we're going to have an employee of the town, and Rodney is an employee of the town, standing between us and getting our work done for the people of the town. There has to be a better way than that. And as I said, what it should be is if there's going to be an issue, whether it was with the Phase 1 stuff, and I should have told Chris to do this in the first place, put it in writing so that everybody gets a copy and we know what the issues are and everybody can deal with it. And the same thing in this case. To have an email come out of nowhere to the commission, basically, and to our engineers directly, saying that, you know, we're not going to sign this because, quote, the town has an issue.
Tom, has Rodney
Rodney and-
Rodney not had multiple conversations with you about this issue prior to that email going out?
No.
No. You've talked to him about that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
The only conversation I had was after his letter went out, he offered to take me out to lunch next week, okay? Now, whether that's appropriate or not, I don't know, because
hasn't
we
been a
do have
problem
a
in the
seven-member
past.
commission, and he still owes me a lunch from last year's Democratic primary elections that we bet on, so.
He's bought you plenty
In
of
any
meals.
case, but all I'm saying is this has to be, you're talking about professional, it needs to be done professionally. We do have this authority, we do have this gigantic worldwide firm that is, got the expertise that we're relying on to design this project. And if Chris, in his role as whatever, he's supposed to be here to help us, not to go around us
I am
and
here to
and
help you
interrupt.
if you let me.
Right, well, I
I've
mean,
said
but
that,
you
you don't
have to,
understand
you
that.
can't help us by ignoring us, Chris.
No, I'm not ignoring you. I was asked by my boss.
Point of order, point of order. You're all out of line. This conversation should not continue in this vein. We have something that was on the table. Chris has expressed concern over a giant project now on 151. It can more easily be addressed probably because of two reasons. There's a 100-foot right-of-way there. And as I said once before, if we need to go under the road, that's not a problem. We can throw pipes hundreds of feet, horizontal, 6 feet down, 8 feet down, 10 foot down, whatever we feel like, all right? So there is no need to even have this subject on the table because we will not disrupt the town's or the state's repaving of the road. So I'd like to leave that point on the table, and I'd like you, Tom, to stop dominating this conversation with a no-win situation. We should settle some issues in the sewer commission meeting on the side. The town has made their position clear. This is not a debating society. Let's stick to the issues. We have a agenda. I'm ready to make a contribution to the next agenda item.
If I may say something, I agree, Joe, that we shouldn't be engaging this issue like this here tonight. But I do think that Rodney's letter and Andrew's remarks and Tom's remarks and Chris, all point to the fact that we don't have a modus operandi that we are all agreed upon. We on the commission, as far as I know, never had a conversation about how life would change when we had a staff person and what the difference in roles and responsibilities might become, lines of communication and accountability. Clearly, we were caught up with other business, which was important and valuable, but this too is really important to our functioning. And I don't think that we can proceed effectively until we do have that conversation and take into account everything that Rodney said and Andrew said and our past history and the future. We need to be a team. We're lucky to have this number of people and this amount of talent devoted to getting this project done, and we somehow have to find a way to be communicating effectively. Thank you.
Right, well, this conversation gone way beyond where I started, which was with the email that was sent by Rodney to Anastasia, says the town, didn't mention Chris or anybody, says the town has many questions, concerns relative to the proposal. And I wanted to know where that's coming from and what the issues are, and it's never been explained to the commission. And I presume that Chris knows what the issues are, and the GHD and the commission should have a chance to respond, because there's a reason that that project went to town meeting at a $494,000 budget. It wasn't just to put a little pipe down the middle of Route 151. That's a much bigger project, and that's what was supported by town meeting, and that was submitted by you guys. So all I'm saying is that this email coming out of nowhere with no conversation with the commission and no explanation of what the issues are, and a follow-up email that, well, we'll have a meeting of the town people and we'll let GHD in on the conversation after we talk, doesn't get us anywhere, and it hasn't happened. So it's just, this is what I'm talking about. This is the issue on the agenda, is that email relative to the scope of amendment number 3.
And I guess.
And it's clear that.
I guess my
from-
question would be.
From Chris's conversation is that he doesn't understand the full scope of what it's intended to be.
So, rather than to continue to denigrate his degree of knowledge.
No.
What is,
It's not.
what is the commission's collective desire on how that information is gonna flow? So that, as a staff person, he has a fair shot at succeeding, meeting your expectations as a body, and meeting the expectations of his hiring authority. So how's it supposed to go? Is he supposed to lay out his concerns and send them to you as chair? Is he supposed to lay out his concerns and send them directly to GHD? Is he supposed to send them to the 7 full members of the body all at the same time? And then how does that then get resolved in a timely manner when you meet once a month? We are moving, I mean, we were all impatient in the planning process, but in the planning process, we had no deadlines. We are now trying to run a large project that has deadlines. If every time there's a question, if there's no de minimis standard by which something can get decided, questions are gonna get asked, and they're gonna wait up to a month to get resolved. We will miss our deadline on filing the design plans for the SRF, we'll blow the money, and we will blow this project. So, how do you, as a body, want him to act so that you can get the information that you feel you need in order to provide him policy direction so that he can interact and make design decisions under your guidance with your design engineer? How's that gonna happen? And I would suggest we don't have 6 weeks to figure that out.
Well, we're not even talking about the same project now. What
You're
we're
not
talking about
the
is
same
a
project, but you're gonna
contract.
be talking about the same.
The contract that we're talking about, contract amendment number 3, was unanimously approved by the commission at our last meeting. This came in afterwards. I would suggest, and you're listening to your people, I would suggest that if Chris has an issue, it should be absolutely sent to every single one of us, to Rodney, to Anastasia, to you as our contact with the selectmen, and everybody knows what's going on. And if we need to call a special meeting, fine. There's no big rush on this particular contract, number 3, because that project's not starting for
Right,
a
but
long time.
this is a predictor of trouble on process with phase 1. So this is your test case for which there's not an enormous amount of pressure from time, but unless resolved in a clear and workable manner, this issue is gonna come back and bite us collectively on making final decisions on the package for phase 1. And so,
Well, that's already been addressed, Andy. All right? When Chris said he had issues with the collection system on phase 1, and we actually had a conversation about it too, relative to depth of pipes and things like that, I had told him a month ago, bring it up with GHD. He had a number of meetings with GHD. All right, we don't know what happened at the meetings, but that's why I'm saying things should be put down in writing by both Chris and GHD, so there's a record. It's a professional way to do it, all right?
I would.
The fact that we're talking about this contract number 3, we're out of the blue, we got hit with this email from Rodney, is a whole different thing than our working operations in terms of
I would
this
suggest-
current contract goes, and I believe they can be worked out fine.
I would suggest
It's
to
just
you,
that-
I would suggest to you, they're not, and I would suggest to
Well,
you,
It's not the fault of the
as a
commission.
non-chair member of my board, let me personalize this, as a non-chair member of my board, if we were building a DPW project, let's say we were, building the fields at the school, and the town engineer had specific concerns that he had with our design consulting firm, and he dealt exclusively with the Board of Selectmen chair, and they made substantive changes on design scope, and I did not know about it as a member of my board, I'd be unhappy.
So,
What
so
you
would
just
we.
described, what you
What
just
I described
described
is
to.
everybody gets the
Tom,
memo,
no,
Rodney,
let me
okay?
finish. What you just described about Chris's concerns with Phase One, he mentioned them to you. You told him to talk to them.
Exactly.
Problem solved. What about the other 6 of you? That process, if that's how this $54 million project's gonna get done, I'm telling you, in my role as a member of the Board of Selectmen, that's not okay. Maybe it's okay with the rest of you. Maybe it is fine with you. And if you want to delegate to your chair the authority to decide all matters in between meetings in consultation with the town engineer and the GHD, you can do that. I don't think you've done that. I think
And
you ought
that's
to.
not even close to the situation where I suggest to Chris that he talk to GHD about concerns, engineer to engineer, because
I did.
we do have
I'm
three
waiting for them to
professional
have
engineers
revised
actually
plans.
on the commission
Go
here,
further. Simple as
but
that.
that is the appropriate way to go. That's not me taking over. I'm not the engineer. I don't know anything about it. I told him to talk to them, so we could get a response from them collectively. GHD could give us their response to what Chris's concerns are, and that's the way to go. And in the future, it should all be in writing so that we all get a copy and we can all get the record. But, you know, you're trying to set up some kind of split in the commission here, and I don't think that's appropriate either.
Don't ascribe motive to
We
me,
have
Tom.
been, well, I'm
Can I-
just saying that, you know, this was about one event. We get cut out of a decision, of a conversation even, relative to a contract that we had already approved, all right? And that can't be the way it works. All right, let's
Can I make a
end
com-
the discussion on this item number one, because that's the whole point. It's just, we need to be informed about what the problem is and this doesn't even say who brought up the problem, just says the town has a problem. Okay, we're the town as far as sewers go, so, you know, that's just, you know, not the way, that wasn't the way to go. The way to go should have been, okay, Chris has got an issue, let's sit down and talk about it. And we can always, and I'm planning on it, we're gonna create subcommittees to deal with these things. And, that this particular instance is what this item number one was all about, and it was not the way to go.
All right, Chairman,
Yes, sir.
may I interject?
Absolutely.
Before I leave?
Leaving, you gotta go?
This has gone on long enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you're talking, wait, let me talk. What you've talked about is water under the bridge. It's done. You're not gonna change all that's happened in the last 5 weeks since Chris has been here. Let's set up a process where we move forward with our communications between Chris, GHD, and you and us, so that we can have productive meetings. If we have to meet
Yep.
more than once a month, I'm all for it. If we have to come in every week to approve things, I'm all for it. But what happened in the last 5 weeks is water under the bridge. Let's set up a procedure and let's move forward, because I'm not gonna sit here and listen to this, okay?
Yep,
Because
that's-
my time
agree
is
with
too
you 100%.
valuable, my
That's the-
time is
that's the
too
whole
valuable.
point.
So let's set up a procedure where we would like Chris to interact with GHD and you, and then inform all of us so that we are all informed. You're right about that. I mean, to get a memo and none of us know about what the heck you're talking about on Amendment 3 is correct. But let's just move forward from here. Let's not keep going with the water under the bridge, please.
Well, again.
Okay. Let's set up a
Done with-
procedure,
we're
let's
done
make a
with that
motion.
issue. Done with that issue. All I
All right.
want to say is that if there's issues, and if you guys don't agree, tell me, but if there's issues that Chris has with GHG's work, should put them in writing, everybody gets a copy, we know what's going on.
Well, then
They
let's-
interact with each other, engineer to engineer, and they all come,
Let's set it
report
up
back
that
to
way, then
us.
let's set it up that way.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what Andrew's sitting there saying.
No, that's-
Set up some procedures so we can move forward.
Right.
Mike, you have a comment?
My comment was, I have a very strong environmental background. I don't know shit about engineering stuff. And I value the fact that we now have a person who's made this his life's work. And frankly, based on the people who are on this commission now, that has been lacking. And it isn't lacking anymore, and we've got to take advantage of that. I will.
I'm not disagreeing with you, it's just that we have an entire worldwide engineering firm we've been working with that has all that experience too. They need to talk to each other, let us
Exactly.
know what's going on. That's all I'm
Exactly.
saying. And if there's decisions to be made that are the responsibility of the sewer commission, we should make informed decisions with all of that information presented to us by both of those engineering firms.
Agreed.
Right, so that's all I'm saying. It shouldn't, like I said, just be a vague email out of the air that says, we're not gonna sign your contract because somebody in the town has a problem. So let's end it there, because that was the email we're talking about. All right, everybody agree? If there's issues, Chris, all right, you're,
I'm
if
trying
you,
to do
get-
the
if you
best
get
I
an
can for
issue,
the town of Mashpee. I'm
write it up and
trying not
send it to
spend
everybody.
More of town of Mashpee's money than they have to.
Right.
I'm trying to get a good
But it-
project done. I've
but
done
again-
projects like this before, and I know what I'm doing.
Right, but
And
they do
that's
too.
bottom line. If you wanna
They've
use
done
that-
plenty of projects
so
like
that-
this
I'm not
too.
saying they haven't, but that doesn't
Right.
say that. So, enough. But I mean, if you want to take my advice from an expert, take it. If you don't,
Actually,
then
we
don't.
just decided what we're gonna do.
Chris, I will be looking for your comments when I'm asked to review anything that has to do with engineering.
Then I'll be here to give them to you.
Okay.
That's as it should be.
But as I said, if there's issues outside of the meetings, outside of this, once a month, although we're, anytime we want, put them in writing so all of us know what the issue is and where it's coming from, and have that conversation with our design engineers, GHD.
What we're trying to
And
do is develop a
then
job
we'll work that out.
description and develop what my role is between you,
Right.
between the town manager, who's my sole boss.
Yeah, well,
The
it's,
chairman of the commission is not. I'm there to advise and help and assist. And with Kevin Groenpains as your first town engineer,
second,
I
actually.
can.
The other guy
I
lasted
can
a
do-
week.
I can help you a lot, and I can help the town.
Right,
But we're trying to define my role, and that's where we are now. When I'm asked by my boss to look at something and give my opinion, I look at it and gave my opinion, and that's what I did, bottom line. End of story, not worth any more discussion.
all right, then that's a conversation
shows
we
that.
should have with Rodney, because in that
That's what we're
instance,
trying
it
to
cut
do.
the commission out of its justifiably statutory
We're-
role, so.
we're trying to
we-
define the
We
roles
can't
right now.
just do that, that's not acceptable as
That's
far
what
as
we're
I'm
trying to
concerned.
do.
for
That's
the
what we're
commission.
trying to do, and we're trying to get cooperation from you as well as everyone else.
And the reason I say in writing, is so everybody knows, and we're hearing the same, we're reading the same thing, not getting all kinds of impressions about what's what, all right?
That's fair.
I mean, I got a
So-
project to do, and I want to get it done. We got time frames, as
Yeah, well, we got a project to do.
Andy said, and.
I want to get it
I
done, I've been
wanna-
working on it
I
for
wanna meet 'em.
32 years.
I think like the prime focus should be phase one, and then move on to everything else. But you got a project to find, you're finally gonna get a shovel in the ground, some pipe in the ground after 20, 30 years. Let's rock and roll and get it done.
Absolutely. There's still outstanding issues relative to town council easements and other stuff that
I've got a
are
lot of
scaring me in
experience
terms
in
of our
that,
being
but-
able to meet our self-imposed deadline at the end of the month. That's a separate issue, though, and we
I've been
won't,
having conversations with the people at SRF people, and I happen to know some of the people over there, so we can get this done. I've done a lot of takings, a lot of easements, a lot of everything. I've done every one on the projects I've done.
Yep. Again, it's very much appreciated that you're here, and again, in creating the position, the wording of the job description is sort of, a little woozy, but, I mean, as I understand it, you're here to help us get our job done. And what we needed all these years was administrative help as much as anything, but we needed somebody that knew what he was talking about, knew what he was dealing with in doing this administration for us. I mean, as our representative discussing things with the engineers and all the rest. Again, I mean, clearly, you weren't hired to be the designer, but you have design background, and if you have, ideas that you think are important, those are appreciated. It's just a matter of how they get disseminated and dealt with, okay? I voted for you, for the job, so it's not like, so did Andy's, unanimous. So let's make sure we all work together. Second item is the groundwater discharge permit application status. Where does that stand, Anastasia?
Sure, so that, the discharge permit is a two-part process. The first application was submitted in April, and we're coming to the end of our technical review period. So that's when Mass DEP is reviewing and providing technical comments. We've reached out to the Southeast office to follow up with Boston to see if they have any comments on the first part of the application. So that should be wrapped up very shortly. We've also submitted the second part of the application in late June. It's currently under DEP review, and they've let us know that they'll have initial comments next week, so they'll be coming very shortly. And we've also given them a preliminary 75% copy of the drawings so that they can give us preliminary comments as we're preparing the SRF application, which is the next major application that we'll be talking about.
Right. Okay. So in effect, we're all done with that from the commission's point of
Yes,
view, except
yes.
for hearing back from DEP what
Yeah.
we get for a discharge permit.
Yeah, so if there are any comments, we'll provide responses to them, we'll review them with everybody, and then we'll provide that response to DEP. But it's within the process.
Okay. And make sure everybody gets your comments,
Oh, yes.
including
Oh,
Chris.
yes.
All right. SRF application review. Boy, that's a long document. I tried to read through it and started sort of scrolling when I got to the end because there's a lot of headings with no content. And there's a number of documents that I guess I'm expected to sign. By the way, I finally did find the original SRF application that the town made, and Andy will be happy to know that it was signed, the authorized representative of the town was me, the chairman of the sewer commission, and it was addressed to you, the head of the Division of Municipal Services, so.
And we let that go.
This, and you know what, if I had found this before you guys decided you wanted to have, this is a complication that we have to work out relative to the SRF application, because we have that Rodney authorization, and we have the sewer commission chair. Some of the things, it seems to me, that relate to the sewer stuff, I gotta do. Some of the things Rodney has to do, probably the overall signature instead of the way it was done the first time, because that vote has already been taken at your suggestion. But there are documents in there, I have to tell you, that I have no clue what they're even talking about for me to sign off on some of these stormwater permits, chapter 69 or whatever, all of that stuff. So I'm gonna need somebody to tell me what those things are before I sign
Can I make a
anything on.
suggestion?
Sure.
Him.
Yeah, well, maybe he knows what they are.
Well, but, I mean, this, again, this makes the point.
A lot of them are very relevant.
The
Oh,
contact.
I know, I think so too.
The contact on a day-to-day basis for the agency as the town's representative ought to be your staff person.
I've done
but
groundwater.
His, you know,
Sure.
it's not saying
I've done it.
he's signing off on documents, it's not saying he's authorized to submit them on your behalf. He should be the contact person. He should be advising you, all right, Tom, you know, these items are appropriate, fall within the sewer commission chair's jurisdiction to sign off on. These are things I gotta get from DPW. These are things I gotta get from Concom. These are things the town manager ought to be. You shouldn't, you know.
Knowing the forms, Andy, all of those things are on one page with one
Okay.
signature.
That's okay.
But my
Some I
point,
know,
my
some I
point
don't.
is.
So, absolutely, no question.
This is a, you know, don't use the application in what, 1999? When that
Well, what was the date, Andy? It was your
What was the
idea
date?
anyway,
It
you held us
doesn't
up
matter. I don't
for
know.
so many years.
Anyway,
Yeah.
whatever that date was, and what you were resourced at to be the model that you're following today. That was a planning grant. They were easy. We gave them to anybody who applied for them on something better than the back of a napkin, all right? You're doing a $54 million borrowing authorization. It needs to be managed on a day-to-day basis by your professional. He's guiding you, he's guiding Rodney, he's collecting information.
Chris should have the initial review, and that would make it easier to farm out the various pieces to the appropriate parties.
Well, some of those are policy decisions, it's just,
He's not
It's for
making a
us
decision.
making
He's acting as a staff manager to us, Tom.
right, but yeah, no, there's a but. What we need is to be able to understand what the questions are we're being asked to sign off on, and I will absolutely.
Understood.
He can
But
help
his
with
job,
Chris,
his job is
yeah.
to come to you and say, these are nuts and bolts, yes, no, factual things. These require policy decisions. These require you to make a commitment to do an enterprise fund. These require you to do, a long-term O&M maintenance plan. What's the commission's view on that? What are you willing to commit yourselves to? Are you willing to say, well, check the box? He should be breaking up that application, saying, these are the things that are subjective calls you need to make. These are just the facts, Joe Friday questions, check yes or no, they're objectively true, they're objectively false. You sign here, you sign here, my recommendation is, once this is done, this is what you do. That makes your life easier. You shouldn't be, we should not as a community be asking you as volunteers, any one of the 7 of you, to be responsible for compiling that level of information. It's beyond what's reasonable to ask for you, and it's an invitation for things to get messed up. And it's the way we used to run as a community for a variety of reasons. And periodically and
Worked very well.
episodically, we have changed that. So we are now at the professionalizing point of our interactions with the state on this stuff. You should be using your engineer to detail that. And it's not admin stuff. We didn't
No.
hire him to be an admin. We hired him to
It's
be
professional review.
a professional manager, of which there is some administration. But it's not an admin position. It's a substantive position. And you've got that resource now. If I were you, I'd be running to give the checklist and the wading through that application. I know that application. I don't want to do that application as a part-time selectman. You shouldn't want to do that application as a part-time sewer commissioner.
I've already
He
done it
has to do
once.
it. But but the point is, you did it once when you had no help.
Absolutely.
You have help.
Andy,
Adjust.
Andy, all right, I agree with you. I mean, the point, the benefit to us of, and I don't want to get into this bigger conversation yet. The point for us is that we absolutely did need administrative help, because all of that stuff was done by me sitting in my town planner office for 30-odd years, okay? And once I was out of the
No choice.
office, there's nobody in town hall. And
Now there
now
is.
there's somebody in town hall. We just got to figure out how this all works. And I'll talk to him later about SRF stuff and all that stuff. But in any case.
Part of solving a
I'm
problem
sorry I
is
brought up
admitting
the
you have
issue
one.
that I don't understand some of the questions you put in your stupid SRF
Well, that's
application.
why you have those people to my left.
Yeah.
It's an IQ test.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Fail.
get that stuff from them too, but there are things that require answers on behalf of the town. Does the town have this? Does the town
Let
conform
Jeff
with that, you know?
Well,
Jeff.
we
I will-
complete that
I'll
document.
chair the meeting.
And then we will give it to Chris, and then he can say, yes, we agree with this, so I think we need to get this. He can help shepherd it through the process of who needs to get signed, as Andy indicated. That's usually, the best thing for us, is we'll have a point person in town hall
Right.
that we can use, and obviously, he's got experience in it too. I mean, we've been doing these for, years, so we go through them, we pull them out, but we're now working with Mashpee, who we haven't worked with in terms of who's signing off. So Chris is gonna be the perfect resource for us to use to do that process.
I mean, on cases like this permit, I mean, I've done a gazillion permits, whether it be wetland, sewer extension permits. I've done some water withdrawal permits and discharge permits for, cranberry bogs and ponds and sewer systems. And
Chris,
I generally have my customer, your role is you do all the permit, I'm the customer, I sign it. I don't go through and nitpick and go through it because I don't understand it. That's why you're hired. And with you bringing it to me, I'm not gonna go through every single page. I mean, I'm assuming that you've done this before and I should just sign it.
What we normally do is we flag things where we know that we need to get direct input. Town council has to sign off on the ownership of land, so we can't do that. Chris isn't gonna be able to do that, but Chris can
No.
help go to the town manager or directly to town council if he's authorized to do so, to get that signature, and then he can get it back to us.
I was gonna
Yeah, well, I can do that too, but
stop
I,
working on the takings
basically-
and everything now. There's 5 private roads you gotta take easements over. There's Willow Bend, you have to do that. So you gotta do plan surveying and all that. I was planning on taking care of all that.
So
Was
there's-
my role, if everyone's okay with that.
Well, I mean.
So we got something
You're not
now.
talking about surveying stuff, you're talking about
I'll take care of it all.
putting together a package, because, and we still have this issue, Andy, of it's still on, well, actually, it's further down on the agenda. Let's, when we get to the pump
The
stations.
private roads, all plans exist, I simply have to do deed descriptions and
Yeah, they're all
the,
subdivision roads.
the town council will do the verbiage for exactly what the easement allows. I'll do everything else, but
So if I could just point out two quick things about the permit application. It will include 90% plans and specifications. So this is primarily a process review. It's DEP looking to make sure that we're meeting all the process guidelines, and there's ample opportunity to incorporate comments. Those plans and specifications
Thanks,
will be
Andy.
distributed to everybody.
Trying to literally turn the temperature down.
Energy conservation.
Well, this one is heating.
Oh, jeez.
Go ahead. Yeah, but after the submittal, it'll be submitted to DEP, so they can review it on a process amendment. It'll be submitted to the town and the sewer commission from a town perspective, and it'll allow us to gather the comments, such as Chris's comments about the balance of optimizing gravity sewers versus low pressure, and to continue that conversation and incorporate it into the design. So it does fit well with the overall schedule of the project.
Have you had that conversation, you guys, about the 20-foot deep sewers and versus the?
Yes, so we are
we're
working.
waiting. We've had conversation, and I'm gonna do kind of a peer review. I mean, it's always good to have a third party in, because I
Sure.
might see something on a design that they don't see. And I've got a lot of comments, but I haven't shared them yet, because I'm waiting on the final survey, because I've had times in the past where preliminary plans were done on the GIS pulled off the assessor's website, and a drawing is several layers, and they're all supposed to be on the same 0-0. On the assessors, I found sometimes you have lot lines
Oh,
through
the
houses, so you
assessors are a
don't- you don't-
disaster.
So, I don't know what they based it on for their preliminary, but that's probably what would have been based on to get a preliminary out. Now, all the field survey has been done by
JC
John
Engineering.
Churchill.
Is it completed?
JC, John
There's
Churchill
a
out
few
of Wareham.
sections left, but the majority of it is
And,
completed.
but they've done, they were finishing up.
99
I think,
point
yeah,
something percent.
It's mostly all done.
Yep.
And there's a couple things out in the field I found, water lines, things that weren't, they were different on the plan because they crossed the road when you think they'd stay on one side, but there's a couple little items.
Did you hear about the
And-
problem we had with gas lines?
So what I'm waiting for is GHD to process all this survey data they received, revise the profile sheets to reflect the accurate data, and then I can do I don't want to
Yeah.
go do a nitpick, fine-tune review unless I have exact data.
Yeah, because
And
there's
that
like
would be that
500 of them
90%
and one of
submittal.
you, so
Yeah.
let's take
So when
advantage of
that
that.
comes, I have some ideas that, rerouting certain things. I know there's an issue with the pump station down at Southport. Things might be off the
Summerwood, you
table on that. There's other things, so, or Southwoods, whatever it is.
Summerwood,
Or Summerwood.
yeah.
Yeah,
But there's some things subject to change. I want to wait till I see the accurate surveyed plans before I build the house.
yeah, and that's exactly the point that I was making, is I think that would be very appropriate to the project schedule at the 90%, and that'll give you the fully updated
Yeah.
set.
So we've communicated, we're on board.
So, again, the more communication you can get to all the commissioners about what you guys been doing, that's great, you know?
And the one other thing I
Want to know
wanted
that you're working together.
to quickly point out on this is another component of it is the professional service agreement, which is what we have in draft form today as amendment 4. This is the initial
Yeah,
draft.
I read that and it
that's
blew my
been-
mind, yeah.
Yeah. It's the initial draft that's been developed, it's been distributed, and we'll talk through the scope of services, collect comments, and continue to refine that scope as we finalize the amendments. But because it needs to be part of this package, we wanted to start introducing the scope at this
Yeah.
meeting.
That's a bit further down on the agenda.
Yes,
We'll get to that, yeah. So we were on the item of SRS application review. I just made the point that there are some questions that I'm expected to sign, but I don't know whether the town has it. So I guess I'll ask Chris to see, I'll give you the pieces that I don't understand, and if you can check with Catherine, because they've involved stormwater and all this and various statutes that we don't.
Why don't you wait till we go through the checklist to go through all the things that apply and don't apply, and give you the set before you.
Well, you've given me this SRF expecting me to sign forms. I've gotten forms from your staff that have asked me to sign them
They
already,
draft,
and
and
I
as we've been
can't because
producing
I'm
the
not.
forms, we've been sending them over
I think that's
to allow
gonna come when
time
the
to
final
review.
package is ready.
Yeah, but we can pull that all together, have a meeting and walk through everything.
I thought he was going through the old one and looking at
No,
everything
no.
that was applicable as opposed to.
I just found this 2 days ago in my dining room. If I wish I had it.
Mine was,
Well, I looked all over the house and there it was, right next to my dining room table.
So as we'll pull all that together, we'll schedule a meeting and we can go through everything in detail.
Yep, and I think if we have meetings, if there's concern that anybody doesn't trust me or on a commission, we can always have 3 members attend. You know, if you're interested in the subject and have a meeting with Chris and GHD. I mean, you know, I've been to dozens and dozens and dozens of meetings over the years with GHD over in Barnstable, whatever, in my own time, and, you know, no intention of cutting anybody out just because I was available, so.
You know that.
So in any case, yeah, and I believe I sent to all of you what I got from them as the SRF package.
You did.
Yeah, and as you see, it's a monstrous thing,
It
so.
is.
And
That's
there's
what,
more that goes in it.
There's always more
Yeah.
in the station.
Chris, you'll be reviewing the SRF package and letting us know. Could we go on to
I'd
the
love
next
to have
subject,
you
Tom?
review it before we review it.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be the way to go.
we'll,
Perfect. You want to go next?
There's still a lot of parts missing, so I'll wait till it's complete.
Right.
just, given these issues, GHD and everybody, you know, we've had this deadline of submitting the SRF application by the end of this month, which is like 2 weeks from now. I don't think that's gonna happen, given all the things that are up in the air, so.
Let me speak to
We
it this
can
way.
put on a press in the next couple of weeks, but there's things relative particularly to the Summerwood easements and town council's discussions with them, which sound discouraging. I mean, the last time I talked to them, it was
You
like,
actually
well, we
have
may have to
to
do
Those can be submitted.
adverse taking in that case where we didn't really want to do that with anybody, so.
What we can do, and we've done this with many other applications before, is there's certain components that can be submitted after the fact. So it allows DP to start its initial review. Easements
Yeah.
usually get held up till the end, so it's not uncommon to submit them
Ownership, signing
as
off on
they-
the
as
ownership
they
by
come in.
council is certainly
Yeah.
one of those, yeah.
And I also wanted to point out that the state deadline for the submittal is October 15th. So
Yeah.
we are way before that.
Yeah.
So there is float there if it's needed, but we can still proceed with the July, end of July deadline.
they've often, Tom, they've often issued documents and it comes down to, they'll even hold, they'll allow you to advertise at your own risk and they just won't allow you to award until you've gotten
Yeah.
all the final documents in. But the sooner we get into the queue, the faster they can start reviewing
Yeah,
the
that was the whole
documents.
point,
That puts
'cause
us in
Yeah.
a better position.
We're
And
in
that's, we want to
competition
beat
with other
everybody else
people.
that's submitting on the
Yeah,
15th.
yeah.
So that was part of the strategy of
Yeah.
submitting this early.
But I'm getting stressed out that things aren't totally falling into place. There are monkey wrenches that have been thrown into the thing, particularly relative to Summerwood, that are just, you know, blowing my mind, so.
We can
Any
talk
case.
about some of the takings on what my role could be in them, because I could get a lot of stuff done. I talked to Gerard Martin and Michelle, she used to be up in Marlboro, Water and Sewer, Michelle Higgins over there. And they want this to happen in Mashpee, and so they're willing to be a little flexible. I mean, they want this to get cleaned up, they want it to go through. As far as the land takings, they'd rather you have them in October and all your ducks in a row. But he said if it's a matter of pushing another town meeting, if you have, because some of these you might have to deal with town meeting, that they'll give us, well, she
And
want
we've
to
done
commit,
that
but
before.
they'd probably give us an extension to that.
October 15th is your deadline?
Yeah, but I think it could be
So-
done.
I mean,
by
we,
then.
we're going to town meeting, we go to town meeting, within a week of that.
Yeah.
You know, we can put stuff on takings issues and easement takings on the warrant until, you know, Labor Day.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne had
So-
indicated that they're holding a spot for
Yeah.
our
so
easements.
There's time to figure all that stuff out, and I would suggest that, you know, a separate conversation
Yeah.
about takings issues and Summerwood issues and the like is an appropriate thing for the group to talk about with council present, with the manager present. You know, so there are a range of issues that need to get talked about that everybody needs, that they are policy decisions that need to get resolved so that that issue can move forward. I suggest that should not wait until your August meeting.
No. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
even have the
that,
capabilities to draw the plans.
That meeting should happen particularly relative to Summerwood. We need to have some in-person
Understood,
discussion
so if you're
with
willing to call a
council present.
special, you know, we can coordinate a timing for a special meeting where we're gonna have that conversation. And I think it needs to happen, you know, sooner than later.
Yeah, although I'm not sure if it's something that's appropriate for a public meeting at that
We
point.
can
You're dealing
have,
with,
it's appropriate for the full body.
negotiation issues.
It may be something that can potentially qualify for an executive session conversation. That's
Yeah.
Pat's call. It's a borderline call.
Yeah,
But it needs to get talked about, and you all need to make, this is one of these, there's the technical piece, and there's some honking big policy questions, that drive the answer. The technical issues are, you can do it this way, you can do it that way. I don't think those.
no,
make-
everything's already
I
been
don't-
designed over there. It's a
Doesn't matter.
question of negotiation with the owners.
It doesn't, but there are big policy issues embedded in that negotiation that will influence what you do and how you do it going forward with every single installation you do from here till the time you're done with this project. Not phase one, all of it. So it needs your collective attention and input to guide that the technical stuff is trivial. It can be done 6 different ways to get to the same rough outcome. It has very different implications on equity and cost and how things get done going forward that you need to talk about. Some of that stuff is not appropriate for executive session. It's not privileged. But some of it, as it relates specifically to their application, might in fact qualify. I don't know, that's Pat's call. But if you want to if you're willing to have a special conversation, convene a meeting to talk about that, I'll get Pat in the room, and we can all sit here and figure out where we're going with this thing.
Yeah, because we're very dependent on past legal opinions on what we can do down there. And in fact, that particular property is unique. We won't see it again where we've got a so-called condominium that's broken up where every single building is on a separate lot. That's, nobody else like that.
Anyway, let's
so
not
it's-
piecemeal the conversation.
I know,
I'm just telling
it's
you,
just that
there are
that's.
big equity
that's the one-
questions
That's the one
that
thing
you need to
that's
figure out
hanging us
here.
up now.
As a matter of policy, this is a really good policy question for you to sink your teeth into and decide how you want to go forward, because it's going to have implications on who pays what, every single private entity going forward.
Yeah, but again, we're totally dependent on Pat for a legal, the legal background on what we can and can't do in terms of making a deal.
Call a meeting,
Right.
I'll get them here.
Good, because I can't get him here. I
Okay.
can't even get to talk to him. All right.
Is
Status of the,
I make
Oh,
a motion
what?
that we do just that we call for a special meeting to discuss these policy issues.
yeah, now this would probably be, I don't know, like, when can you get Pat down here? Probably during the day sometime, right, or what?
I'll get him here, I mean, we can meet, he can be on the screen, he meets with us by Zoom all the time. You tell me, give me 2 or 3 dates when you guys are available to meet, and I'll get you a meeting. It could be next week, you need 48 hours notice to post it, whether it's an executive session or not.
If we do it by Zoom, it can be anytime, so let it be in his venue to plan it.
That's fine, but I'm just saying, you know,
Everybody needs to
you
be
just
able
need
to-
48 hours to notice it. So it can't be before Tuesday. So anytime after Tuesday, I'll set up a meeting. Give me 2 times an evening or a daytime that you're happy to meet as a group, and I'll get you.
Let's start the other way around. Find out when he's available, we'll have a Zoom meeting with him.
Fine.
Yeah.
Next
Well-
week.
Well, get a few dates and times, because obviously, we don't all have exactly the same schedule, but let's try for next week then.
Are anyone on the
'Cause that's
board fully
urgent.
employed?
What?
Is there anyone on the board holding a full-time job?
Well, it
Good.
depends on what that
You
means.
volunteered for this, we'll meet at Pat's appointed time.
Theoretically, I work 72 hours a week for the sewer, for the water district. Or how many hours are there in a week? It's like ridiculous. All right, so, yeah, so if you could get us some dates
You're
from
overpaid
Pat.
for it.
All right, what's that?
I said you're overpaid for it.
Me, talk about the other guys. All right, bid out alternates. We had a list, I want to review and update the list. You guys have
Yeah,
board
so
stuff for us
up
there.
here on the screen,
All
you
right.
can see last meeting, we brought up the discussion of bid alternates for a multitude of reasons to provide flexibility when the project goes out to bid. This list has been tweaked and rearranged and modified, and you'll notice that there's a new item that's been added, and this would be our recommended order of bid alternates that we would propose. So it gives you a chance to look at what options and what pieces you wanted as part of the project to now have in the bid alternates. So the new item is a fence around the facility, but only the first 4 sand beds, yeah.
Why duplicate it?
I,
Just do what we planned to originally, fence the
Yeah.
whole area, and don't go putting that in as an additional expense, it's unnecessary.
So it would actually
Yeah.
be a deduct.
yeah,
The
but
idea
I
is-
mean, the thing is, it's not just a fence, it's the fence with the
Perimeter.
Yeah, and that's why we're
understory
bringing it for
vegetation. It needs to
consideration
grow
here.
up before we tear down that whole back section too, that's closest to the Asher's Path people, so.
Just
In
make sure
honor
you get a
of our
12-foot
commitment to
right-of-way
them.
to the back side of it, so we can get a piece of equipment in there to make the sand beds.
And just to make sure I understand your concern, so the alternate would be reducing the fence line, so it would be a lot lower cost.
Yeah,
and
no,
the
but then
base
we
bed
got,
is the
then we've got a
entire
piece we
perimeter.
gotta tear down later, and we don't have the vegetation established that's providing the buffer to the people in Asher's Heights that were, I mean, you weren't here at those meetings, but I mean, that was a big concern, last year, and we promised people that they wouldn't see this thing, and we don't have to go back twice and rip things down. Everything will be hidden behind the fence when we come back later and add
Yeah.
that, in the vegetation. So I wouldn't, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I mean, I'd rather stick with what we've got and not have to come back
we
later.
drop that
and
item?
Disrupt that, yeah.
Are we in
Absolutely.
agreement to drop the
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah,
temporary
yeah.
fence?
As the chair, I'll ask if,
Just do
take
the
a vote.
perimeter.
How do you guys feel?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm seeing a lot of yeses, so, okay, let's get that off of there.
Yeah, perfect.
We want that buffer
yeah.
established as soon as,
Yeah.
and well-grown in before we get close to Asher's
Yeah.
Heights.
And, yes, go ahead.
I see a lot of stuff there that's optional, but what I don't see, I do not consider the evaluation of putting in stage 2, 3, and/or 4 tanks because of the construction. You were gonna get us cost differential between just doing phase 1 and the cost differential for
Yes.
including 2, or 3, or 4, or any combination thereof in the initial building. This is a foundation question.
Yes,
Right.
and
So the point
What
here
i-
is
what is
that-
the cost?
So the point here, Joe, is that these will go out to bid as adults, and we'll find out
Was
from
gonna
the
get us an
contractors what.
estimate, she
Yeah.
was gonna
We
get
had
us an estimate, oh, where are they?
We got estimates, so I
No,
mean,
I
they
don't
were what?
have an estimate.
Yeah,
so
well,
in
they gave it
terms
to
of, in
us.
terms of raw construction costs,
Yeah.
it's about $500,000
For what?
for each tank, each stage of tankage. So,
Stage 1 is a $500,000, stage
Stage
2
two
is
is a half-
$500,000.
yes,
And
and
3,
very-
4 together is a
is $1
$500,000.
million, right? Because 3 and
It's a
4
million.
is double.
Oh, it's a million.
Double about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the $54 million appropriation, we're currently carrying one alternate for stage 2. Because
You're including tank number 2.
as an alternate. So,
Wait a minute, you just said including it as an alternate.
As an
That's a-
alternate, yeah. Okay, so
Oxymoron in my communications.
it is, so.
Is stage two included or not in the 54 million?
It's included in the cost estimate, but we highly recommend including it as an alternate in the contract. So what
Because
that
we don't know,
explains.
this is all about
Okay.
bids, Joe, you know?
Yeah, so you have a base bid. A base bid is the
54
minimum
million
that you need to take. Add alternates, depending on how the bids come out. So the contractor gives you a price for the base bid, and it gives you a price for each alternate in the order that you
You
require.
present, yes.
Right?
Yep.
And because we're in an uncertain bidding environment, we're trying to build in as much flexibility as possible. There's a lot of construction materials that have exponentially increased.
Right.
Right, so we want to make sure that if there are pieces of the contract that can be built later, and that's what we're trying to do, is identify what components could be built later, so you still have a functioning facility for your first stage. So if the bids come in well, there's a high likelihood that you'll be able to take some of the alternatives. However, if they come in really high because of the bidding, then you won't be able to take those, but you'll be set up to incorporate them in the future. So that's what we're trying to do. Again, instead of it's just one number and you hit it or you don't, this gives you a little more
Yes.
flexibility to
Got
play
it.
with it.
Thank you.
And that's why we're also looking at bidding all three contracts at once. So we have all three of those prices, and you can look at what's the best combination overall to select for the initial construction.
Thanks.
Anastasia, how does this whole issue of, we have a pipe going down Route 28 to Meeting House Road and a pump station down there in the plans, and then we have the Summerwood option, and then we thought we were going to be building a main in Summerwood. This is the thing we want to talk to
Yeah.
town council, is whether we can or can't. I'm still confused about why an easement in a private street is different than a cross-country easement, which is in the statute that says we can take, so, whatever. But that's that conversation we'll have next week,
Yeah.
hopefully, Andy. So I'm thinking that somewhere in that mess, there's some adult things that.
Yes, and that's
are
actually
optional.
the next slide. So what we presented
Okay.
before was for the treatment facility. Now we're looking for the collection system.
Okay,
So the last item that you mentioned was the additional areas for collection. That's picking up those 10 additional houses to the north, and currently a small grinder pump station for them. Both Sea Oaks and Summerwood are policy decisions, so I wouldn't recommend them as alternates. That's a policy of will the town be sewering private developments or not. And then one other thing we can consider is side streets. So it's the last portion of the road can be done as part of a future project. So again, it lets you take off portions of the project if the bids come in really high.
well, I wish we had a map to see what we're talking about there with the side streets. So you're saying that the only private roads where we will have to take easements in the October town
those
meeting
five?
are Christopher Lane, Egret Court, Antunes Drive, Pine, and Rainbow, what is Pine?
Pine's a
Pine Street.
10-foot driveway that you
Yeah,
could
it's-
probably just put a 6-inch stub for both houses, but.
Yeah, did we even
can
need to
discuss
go
that.
down that road? There's no house at the end of it as far
We
as
are
I know.
Just
Currently-
answered your question. You listening?
No, I heard what he said, but
There's
that's
some-
not relevant to whether there's a need to.
Let's
Once the
use our
90%
consultant.
plans come in, there might,
They're a consultant.
I've been reviewing alternates on how to take care of that neighborhood and also how to take care of the long extension down past the cemetery with the Summerwood possibly
That's already
being
come
out
out,
of the mix.
actually.
But there's some ideas that get rolling around.
Well, one of the policy issues, and Andy, I hope you agree with us here, is that Summerwood is like the biggest, closest thing in terms of dumping wastewater to the Mashpee River. And, without getting Summerwood sewered, whether it's with some help to the residents by doing part of the thing if we're allowed to or not, that's critical. I mean, that's been sitting there as the obvious number one item for years. So
Policy issue,
that's why
Tom,
it's
I
an
can't
issue.
answer your question. Do I
Yeah.
think that that load need to be captured, included in phase one? Yeah.
Yeah,
But
How
the
we do
policy
it is the
question,
question.
the policy question is, is the town going to subsidize and offset the cost to private entities of the installation of sewer infrastructure on their property? And if so, that may be fine, on what basis? And if you make a determination that you're gonna do it there, then how do you define that so that it's not broadly applicable to other areas and create inequities when people say, I gotta spend X, and you did X minus for them, why? And you need an answer to that question.
Well, that's our meeting next week.
That's, well, you just
And-
brought it
and,
up. So when you ask me, do I agree with you on the policy? I don't know what the policy is. I agree with you, the objective, you gotta capture their load. That's as far as I'm willing to go right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't have anything else in front of me to talk about.
Yeah.
But you can't just make that one up as you go, because it will kill you. It'll kill all of us if we don't have a basis upon which that decision is made, that you can justify and replicate and administer consistently and without prejudice to everyone else in town.
Talk about it next week, see what the possibilities are. At least we understand the importance of it somehow. Because otherwise, the alternate to us helping them out is Board of Health and DEP just telling them, okay, you gotta pay the whole cost of tying in it. There's no question, they're gonna be paying a lot more per unit than anybody else in this system if that happens, so. That's part of the equity question, but it's the legal constraints on us that are gonna
Anyway,
drive that.
let's not prejudge Pat's arguments
yeah,
about
no.
what the constraints are.
No, we're just waiting to hear the answer. Okay,
Perfect. Then as we continue the design, we'll continue to bring forward opportunities for ad alternates, if there are any, for everyone's review, and then discussion on whether they should be incorporated into the project or not.
well, I guess it's okay to have, you know, the whole Rooster Road neighborhood, which is the other closest thing to the river, and the Clipper Ship neighborhood, which is the third closest to the river. As that all, just as an exercise, but I mean, that's our whole project. If they and Summerwood are not in, there's no more phase one left.
I mean, I'd keep them all in. You're not gonna know until your numbers come in.
Yeah, yeah.
And as far as the private
Yeah.
roads, we're gonna have to take easements over them for them to be included, because the SRF people are gonna want title to property.
Yeah.
Which you don't have for Sea Oaks and Summerwood.
But what I hear, can I just add, what I hear you saying is, this is a protective approach.
Yeah.
So if the construction bid comes in over your 54, that you have things in the bids that every bidder had the opportunity to review and bid against, so that as you begin to drop things to get back to your number, you're not leaving yourself open to a bid challenge. You're not
a very
suggesting,
good way to put it.
you're not suggesting dropping these things and making the project. You're just structuring your package in a way that gives you the maximum flexibility not to have to throw a bid out and rebid because you came in high. So if you're strategically putting these things in this way to create options, why would you not want to have that option available to you and avoid being faced with, we're at $54.1 million.
Right.
We had 54, we're gonna, have to go back out to bid on the entirety of the project. So if that's what you're doing, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do it this way. Is that what you're
And
doing?
your SRF application includes all this. It says
Yeah.
just
Anastasia, that's
Yeah,
what you're
this is
doing,
what,
right?
Yes.
this is
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
getting 54 million to build.
Okay,
I-
you got 54 million bucks. If somebody comes in and says, I can build it for 56, do you want to do nothing? Because that's what a bid package
No,
without any
no.
ad alternates takes you to. So,
Perfect. We know that, we know that.
Okay,
We know
so-
that. I'm just about to say, I'm not sure if I agree with the order here, because I'd rather see the side street be the top of this list, not all that other
Tom,
stuff.
The issue tends to be cost. So you might have smaller ones, but if you have one big item at the top, it's either a decision of that's the one you really want, but if you can't get it, you're not gonna get it. You're gonna be like Andy said, you're not gonna get that, you're not gonna get any of your alternates. If you have some small things, and say they come in at 50 million and you've got 4 million, and then you can start working your way down and knock off all the small ones. But that's, again, a decision that you and Chris and others are going to have to decide on. When you look at what they are, how you want to have them play out in your bid alternate list.
Right, strategically, what's your priority?
Can I assume that after you get the numbers, and we will have a chance to review which ones we think we
Yes.
want to add?
Yes.
So you
Well,
order,
but they
we're
have to
not,
be
we're
in the
not in.
order. But
Well,
they have to be
We're
in the
not,
order.
we're not presently
Yeah, no.
held to that order. We
No.
can go back and pick
This
and
is a
choose.
working draft for discussion.
Yeah,
only.
exactly. So
Well,
it's-
but we have to settle it before we go out to bid.
Yes.
Yes.
We,
Yes,
we,
you have
we,
to settle
so
it
we
before.
have to decide whether or not we want to build, you know, what is essentially half of what we're going to build, or not. And things like epoxy coating and the other stuff, and, I mean, who cares? It's the idea that we need to tie in these houses, and there's no point to the project. So that's why I think they should be higher up on that list.
And so that's why you'll see on the facilities side, the backup carbon polisher is listed number 1 because you promised the town that you have a dual odor control system.
Well, no, we
So
didn't.
that's something that
We
you.
actually didn't. That was
Okay.
something you guys added. We told them we'd have excellent odor control, and what we showed people was just the biofilter, not the carbon filter.
great.
That's why that's an
Excuse me.
add-on.
We told people in our promotional materials for this that we were doing 2 levels of odor control.
Well, I'm not sure at what point,
I'm telling you, go back and look at, because it came out of my mouth multiple times. I just think if we go back on that, that did a lot to calm the neighborhood down. That's a bad place to start cutting corners. Look at the materials we put out, they're still on the web.
yeah, it must have come along later in the discussion.
It did, but it's part of what we told people.
Yeah, and that's why Andy's the first one.
I'm just saying, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that would be a big breach of trust.
Yeah.
And, yeah, sorry, so my point was just to point out that, before you get to awarding the stage 2 concrete tanks, you're gonna wanna make sure you have tools and equipment to run your facility. So that's why our recommendation is to have some of these as your first order, to your point. Once this goes out to bid, the bid is awarded in this order, you have no flexibility to say, hey, actually, we gave this list, but now we really want the epoxy coating, but our 54 million total cutoff is actually at office furniture. And now you can't get epoxy coating, you can't switch that around once it goes out to bid, just in case there was, in case there was any uncertainty on that.
Do we have a guess on how much office furniture costs? I mean, I could swear that we could probably just take a few chairs out of town hall to cover that item.
Okay.
That can always be done out of a budget at
Yeah.
a later date, and you bring down,
Absolutely.
well, I've done a bunch of.
And that's
We
all
can do
of
that
these
through our
can be added
CIP.
as
Yeah,
part of the
it's
major
a, like,
project.
That should not be the thing that's
It's
causing
not
any
a big
heartburn.
item.
I do
Yeah,
have
so
one other
it may
question on
wanna
this list.
slide down the
Painting
list.
of walls that isn't included in a building contract? Why is
It
that?
is, it's something that can be done in a later phase.
We can have DPW
So-
do it.
Again, we're
Okay.
thinking anything, you want an
Understood.
operational facility, anything that can be done later, let's consider it for potential for an ad
You
alternate.
don't need it to operate. You
Right.
don't need painted walls to operate. It looks
I mean-
nice. It depends on, obviously, if there's certain things, if the room had certain
I
requirements.
did a lot
it's
of
one thing.
concrete stuff, and you always had to seal it up, so I was curious.
Do you
It
have
wasn't
any,
included.
any input on that, Mr. Building Commissioner?
No.
You don't care whether it's painted or not? It's concrete block inside, all right, not a code thing.
Insulated.
So, I mean, okay, we'll stay on that list there. We'll keep the backup carbon filter, but painting of walls, office furniture,
I would suggest you look at this
they
from the
could slide down the list.
Look at this from the perspective of what's
you really
easy
need.
to be replaced through other means. We
Yeah.
have our capital project, capital funding every year through an appropriation to deal with things like office furniture. We can get DPW to paint the building, paint the interior walls. Get the stuff that you can't get through any other normal means through us that you'd wanna do as part of a capital infrastructure project. Drop all the other stuff down the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
So-
kind of
so
guidance.
the-
we're
Your sheds.
looking for.
Yeah,
And your tools, you're gonna hire an O&M company.
Yeah,
If they don't
we'll-
have tools,
we'll
you
buy a
got their own
shed.
company.
we'll
Yeah,
buy a
you can buy
shed
a
through the
shed.
CIP.
You're not gonna-
I mean,
you
hey,
know,
it's
you
great to
don't-
put all this stuff, and not have it be on our operational, our capital budget, but if you're worried about it,
Leave it off.
take that stuff off, we can deal with it. We're not gonna not open
If
the facility because we don't have a shed. We're gonna buy a shed.
If stage 2 tanks is your number 1 priority, then it should be the number 1 on your add-on.
Yeah, no, our second stage,
Or sorry, the
odor control is our number 1 priority, but it sounds like we must have the tools and equipment, so that probably ought to go up there, certainly way ahead of painting and office furniture.
And even epoxy, you can change order some of these things.
Doesn't your bid request to get a contract operator, can't that have the requirement that they show up with their own tools?
It can, and we're working
So don't buy 'em.
to review.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
we're planning a working, meeting with
Yeah.
Chris and Catherine to discuss some of those nuances.
Yeah, and I guess part of the conversation is whether it's cheaper for us to buy them up front rather than paying extra every year for the guy to bring his tools or not, so.
If you don't have the money,
Yeah,
it's
look at the
not
long-term
cheaper.
thing, yeah. It's just, let's say it colloquially, it sucks, we have to like firm this up before we get to a point where we've got all the bids and we can, we can't move
Unfortunately,
things
yeah.
around,
Yeah.
that makes it hard. Yeah,
But we can continue this conversation and this list can evolve.
Horse name
And the
here.
other item we're looking into, to Anastasia's point about the bidding climate, is allowing flexibility in the materials of construction. So for example, when in the collection system, allowing both DIP and HDPE, so different ductile
And
iron
PVC.
and,
I wouldn't do ductile iron, period. And I'd leave it to PVC or HDP. I mean, ductile iron, unless it's always flowing full. We had a nightmare in Plymouth where it all rotted out. Shit was coming up everywhere, literally,
The ductile iron thing, what, do you get
with a force main.
corrosion or something?
Force
or-
main. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, leaking at the seams, you
Yeah.
mean?
Well, they didn't have, it didn't.
Vinyl
wasn't
is
flowing
vinyl.
full. It was total
it wasn't
solid.
flowing full.
Right.
But vinyl, so you don't know who's maintaining these things. That's the
These
problem.
are all small, I mean, the
Yeah.
force mains we're talking here are all small, so.
My recommendation would be PVC or HDP, depending on your situation. Like if you had horizontal directional drilling, use the HDP. If you're doing open dig,
Which this is at
use your
this point.
C900.
Yeah, and the reason we're considering ductile iron, again, is materials are in flux right now. Let
Yeah.
them play against each other, and we'll see what the most cost-effective is, unless there's a policy decision not to go with one of the materials.
Vinyl is vinyl. So I stick
How
with
about
vinyl.
pipe bedding, Chris? Glass aggregate seems to me to be off the wall.
So that is
They
something that the
I don't
town
know
of
the
Orleans-
availability of the glass aggregate. I know they do it down the Cape, but I don't know how the availability and, you probably know more about that. I've always used stone, but it's
So-
an option.
Yeah,
I haven't
so
really looked into it.
Where does that even come from? Why is it up there?
it
There's
is,
other
it is
towns
actually a
that- other towns have been
recommendation
using it.
of one of the contractors,
Yeah.
a local contractor. They're currently
they're
using it in
creating
New
it, yes.
Orleans.
Is it cheaper
As
than stone?
It is, it's about half the price. What we're currently following up is to see if there is, exactly what Chris was saying, if there is enough quantity available regionally, but it's
Is this
something we're-
recycled glass, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a facility in Dennis, DEP
Yeah.
paid for a regional facility in Dennis to take all the glass
Yep.
from the towns, crush it,
Yeah.
it's supposed to go back to you for road aggregate and other purposes, backfill
And
purposes.
Mashpee actually contributes to it,
Yeah, we do,
doesn't it?
in
Yeah.
a quantity comparable to what we contribute, so the question is there enough
Yeah.
in the time frame you need it? But there is a local source of crushed glass aggregate in Dennis.
As long as it's cheaper than
Yeah.
And has
stone.
it been used
that's what we're
enough
looking
to
for.
change from your typical construction method of, you know what I mean?
That's
I'm just saying it's
that's
out
the
there.
concern that we're looking into.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
is
know if
we're
I'd
just
wanna
not-
experiment on
I mean,
a
if you're doing
project
with,
with a new method.
if you're doing with ductile iron, I have probably very limited concern because the ductile iron's so strong, but, you know, we just don't know what the material is relative to using it with some of the other HDPE plastic. And most of that would be for also the gravity sewer, so that's why.
Well, what is it, Orleans that's using it? I mean, what kind of pipe are they using?
I'm sure they're using this pipe for gravity sewer, and it's just, we just are looking, it's not something that we've done, we've done more stone, so we're just trying to make sure that there isn't an issue, and if it's done right, then there shouldn't be an issue, but, you know, it really comes down to the quantities available and whether it's, you know, cost effective for you.
Well, you need your
So-
answer by the time the bid goes out.
Yes.
So they're gonna start construction, I guess, once the summer ends. We can go out there and take a look at it.
Sounds good.
Is that Orleans is not yet using it, or are they?
Someone actually is using it. I think is it in Orleans?
It is.
I think it might be Orleans, yeah.
Yeah. A question for Andy. That facility that provides this glass, I don't know if Orleans getting it for there, but I mean, are we limited to what we contribute, or will they sell you more?
I don't know.
Okay, because, I mean,
But-
saying half the
Something we
price
can
of the
look
stone.
into.
so-
I don't know, we just called Dennis
Could be
to
a
find out.
savings.
I don't know if they're having trouble getting rid of it, and they'd happily provide more. I don't know. All I know is we have a right to some of it.
All right. Well, you know a lot more than any of us, so thanks for bringing that up. On that issue.
All right.
All right, that's, I think, all we have for that.
Now, what does flexible mid mean versus adults?
So it means you can allow both materials in your specifications.
Oh, so we
say-
get to choose later?
No, no, no.
No?
The contractor
Not
gets
the
to choose which
pricing.
one he wants. So we say
Oh.
it can be constructed of ductile iron or PVC or HDPE, if we
Yeah.
keep all three in. He comes up with what's most cost-effective for him, and that's what he writes into his bid.
Well, then let's ask Jeff and Chris directly. Sounds like Chris has got a problem with ductile iron. Should we
Well-
just eliminate that as an option?
Well, I guess the question is, why eliminate it if it ends up being the cost-effective way to go? I mean, you can deal with corrosion, and like I said, the force main sizes are relatively small. I
How do
had
you
to
put
go and
a
actually look
2-inch
at the-
ductile iron?
What?
How do you, you know,
So it has to be a minimum of 4-inch.
2 and 4, right?
No, minimum
4-inch is
4
the
inch.
minimum size that the state will allow
Or it'd
for
be
a
4 or
force main.
6 inch.
Okay,
Yeah, they don't make ductile iron or anything
that's
smaller
what I
than
meant,
4.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So-
most
most
of
of
the
the
footage
stuff
is
is-
gonna be 2-inch
Yeah, I mean-
plastic anyway.
Just in perspective, I mean, Plymouth, where I live, is, you know, that was like 36-inch ductile iron pipe. I mean, it was big pipe, and
Yeah.
they didn't manage their
It was a
air
30.
releases and things like that,
was a
and so they
30.
had corrosion, and they had a big problem. They replaced it all with HDPE, which is great.
Yeah.
If you
No, they
have
replaced
corrosive-
it with, I was on that job for 2 years.
Yeah.
It was 30-inch, and it was replaced with C900 whenever we dug. The only HDPE was the section of the street. Well, that was used for temporary, just to bang it out, to get the pump stations up and running. And there was a lot of sections of town that had the 30-inch pipe in, so we sleeved in a 24-inch. So you'd weld all the sections together, then, you know, run it through and run a bullet through, and you'd have a loader and pull it through. So from manhole to manhole, we did the HDPE
Line.
to sleeve it, so you didn't have to dig out the road, so it was all lined.
Yeah.
All the open dig was C900 PVC. Yeah, that was a mess.
Is iron competitive to the plastic?
I don't know what the
I don't
prices
know.
are right now.
I don't know anything
I know the
anymore
steel
on
prices have
construction
gone up
materials lately.
125% in the last 12 months. Does iron follow steel, or are they
Well, see, the
two
problem
separate
is,
worlds?
You know, it's, again, plastic is tied to fuel and availability. There are some in terms of just the long lead times. in
There's gonna
terms
be
of
more and
getting-
more plastics available over time. That's
Yeah,
not a
so,
declining.
again, right now, it's just that we're in a really weird market. And so, the idea is that if you bid the three materials and you bid them and you, in the specifications, as long as we specify them to protect ourselves so that we feel that they're all equal, then it'll come down, as Anastasia said, to what the contractor feels is going to be the most cost-effective for them to put it in. And as long as we're comfortable with the three material types that we're specifying, then it doesn't really matter. You're getting something that's gonna work, whether it's.
Chris, in your
C-
experience, what
C900.
would you be most comfortable?
That's what I'm asking. Are you
I
guys
would
both
say,
comfortable with ductile
Are you
iron?
planning on, where possible, they're gonna be running in the same trench with gravity, right?
Yeah, but what we found is that the contractor tends not to do them at the same time. So they'll put the gravity, usually, especially if the gravity's deep, they'll do the gravity, and then they'll do the laterals, and then they'll do they'll do the force main, and then they'll do the laterals, or vice versa. So that
Yeah,
one's always sort of, they're trying to avoid dodging one with the other.
yeah, it
They
depends.
aren't-
Piggyback, yeah.
They can't really be right next to each other, because if the manholes are 5 or 6 foot in diameter, they're always gonna be offset, because the force main isn't gonna kind of
Yeah, they
compare
generally
off,
kind of
so-
run the same trench, go around the
But if
manholes
it's-
as they go.
But as Chris is indicating, if it's deep, then yeah, I mean, essentially it's one big ginormous trench that you're gonna have open if it's a deep cut, so then they're
We're
gonna.
not gonna dig
support
that
the
deep in this town, we're gonna be in water.
Well, you
Well,
dig your
not where we're
gravity
working
and then
now.
you fill it back
Fill
in
it
and
back in
shelf
and then
it.
you shelf it, and then you.
So you're closing the same trench and paving the same trench once.
Yeah, but these,
In that case,
these
you'd want-
elevations
you'd
are
probably want something
high enough above the water
Bell and
table that we won't
spigot.
have water. It's gonna be caving in is gonna be the issue, is it's
If you
basically
have
firming
water
up
with
the
some of
sides.
these depths, the project cost
Yeah.
is gonna go through the roof.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any water.
Yeah, and the borings have confirmed that,
Yeah.
that we're above the
Yeah, we're
groundwater.
pretty, I mean, we're
Yeah.
pretty high in that section, but
Yep.
again, the nice thing about having Chris now is that if Chris has a preference on a material or something like that, we have specifications to specify all different types of materials, and it tends to be, sometimes it's client preference, and sometimes it's conditions. If the soil conditions are not conducive to using ductile iron pipe, then we're not gonna use ductile iron pipe, we're probably gonna use HDPE, or PVC, which is basically like the C900 that they'd use for water mains.
And
It's
so
the same kind of.
for this project, we did take soil samples to test the corrosivity of the soils, and they did indicate that it's fine. So
What's
that, that the soil is not corrosive
Not
to ductile
acidic.
iron, right? That's one of the first things we look at to make sure you don't get corrosion from the outside also. 'Cause you can get corrosion from the inside, from hydrogen sulfide in the raw wastewater, and then if the soils are corrosive, you can get it from the outside also. The other thing that we can do with the ductile iron is also specify an epoxy coating with that, so it's a complete system, which will give you additional hydrogen sulfide corrosion resistance.
So if we have areas where we think it's gonna be flat or we're gonna have trouble managing air, then we might do what's called Protecto type lining, it's an epoxy coated on the inside. But if we also feel that, you know, PVC and HDPE, the nice thing about, you know, HDPE is, you know, some of the issues as you get larger in size for HDPE is that the pipe thickness changes. And so when you have to transition in and out of structures, then you're transitioning, if you have an 8-inch HDPE pipe, it's gonna be a smaller inside diameter, and so you're trying to match those things.
What
with
I've done
head
on
masses.
in that situation though, because I've done a lot of HDP, horizontal directional drilling on the vineyard for water mains, and when we get to structures, we'd just convert it, that's sections to the C900, and then go back to the HDP,
I'm just saying,
so it's easier to,
it's just a
more
matter
common
of
size.
planning for it. So again, it's preference. If there's preference to a material type, what we're trying to do here is give you flexibility. So the
But-
idea of having 3 materials is it gives the contractor the ability to bid what he thinks is going, or she thinks is going to be the, you know, give you the best bid price.
That's right. I mean, the bottom line is that the contractor is actually getting to pick which of these 3 he's
Yeah,
using,
but we've
right?
already, as the engineer, we're setting 3 material, we're not, it's not like we're taking paper bag and comparing it to concrete.
Yeah, no, no,
comparing it
that's
to
why the
something
issue
else.
came up about the ductile iron. The question is whether to leave it on the table for the contractors.
Okay.
Andy, we'll talk about you after you're gone, sure.
Happens all the time.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if there is a problem with ductile iron for a force main, then why leave it on the list for the contractor to pick, and we end up with a long-term maintenance problem? You know, we got to think about the long-term, you know, cost of this as opposed to just the initial capital cost too, so.
Yeah, I mean, the force main material regardless is not gonna add a big number up or down to the project.
Yeah, again, not so much the number as the headaches. Is there going to be headaches with the ductile iron that we don't want to, you know, have somebody inherit from us 10 years from now or 20?
But
So,
a contractor will pick what's best for the contract and all what's best for the town. So, you know, you wanna,
yeah,
you wanna make your decision and be consistent, but it's not gonna add a big number either way for the.
yeah, like I said, I
Just 'cause
don't,
of the limited distance on it.
I don't think, I'm not asking you guys in terms of number size. I'm asking you in terms of whether it's going to be a problem that we're going to have a maintenance problem. We don't want to build a thing that's,
Why don't,
allow them to pick something that's going to be a long-term maintenance
We
problem
will-
just because it's cheaper for the
we will
contractor.
sit down
We
with
can
Chris
discuss it, yeah.
Yeah.
and just let us work out the detail,
Well-
and then we'll specify what is in the town's best, I mean, our goal
Yeah,
is not
let
to
us-
put in something that's gonna, you know,
Right,
we're not trying to do
Right,
that. We're
yep.
trying to give you flexibility and cost.
Thank you.
yeah, and you guys know and we don't, so have that conversation, and if there's input from other places, you know, I don't know if we still got Val Peter on contract, but I mean, you know, get him in a conversation. I don't know, but I don't know if you know, Chris, we've had Weston and Sampson on as checking out these guys that made a series of recommendations, that's why it's on the agenda. A guy named Val Peter that runs the Chatham plant and has been very good helping us out. A lot of freebie information too, so there have been other eyes on this. Okay, so we all set on the sole source, and we'll leave it to you guys to tell us
Yeah.
whether or not ductile iron should be in the list, keeping in mind the objective of long-term cost. All right. Okay. That's the status of the sole source, limited source procurement letter held up by the town manager. Basically, town manager held up this letter that I didn't have to send him, but I did. And he wants, or town council wants more explanation from GHD as to why.
We will gladly
These are-
provide.
Did you,
and
have
we're-
you done it though?
We're
Is-
currently compiling it. We
Yeah.
were anticipating reviewing it at the next sewer commission meeting.
All right, is that something that's important to go in with the SRF application? Okay. All right. Status of Phase 1 pump stations. I want to start with, I got some drawings from Audrey, well, okay. This one is Mashpee Neck Road. This is not what I got
She's quick?
emailed today.
Yeah.
You mean she already got rid of that
Yep.
crook in the road there? I mean, I thought we were very clear last
Yeah.
week that we're just doing a single back-end driveway, and we got rid of the T, but then she added an L, so.
Yeah.
So
We're
this
back
is-
to the T.
We're back to simple, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just ask you a visibility question, or whatever. Is it, obviously, I would assume that the building is prettier than the generator fence. Is it possible to flip those, or does that just not work in terms of the
We could do that.
station? 'Cause
I will
we've
check
been-
with
We've been
Dr.
focusing on having a very pretty building with hardy planks and everything like that. you
Yeah.
know?
Isn't that what we discussed and agreed on?
So we had originally had
orientation.
the generator to the Plan North. We were asked to move it to the Plan West.
Yeah.
And now, as I understand it, we're flipping the two of them. So the building would be to the Plan West and the generator would be to the east.
So flipping what's on there.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, my thoughts is.
Actually, north
that
and
would
south,
keep
but-
the generator farther away from both houses, and so that would be keep the noise issue right with the way you had it, looks good.
Yeah, I mean, they had it in the back, and I was worried about
Yeah.
the houses in Willow Bend in that case. Right now, it's right in the middle, so,
Yeah, no, but Chris
I
brings
don't
up
know.
a very good point with how it's currently arranged.
Yeah, I think the way it's arranged was how we discussed it, but yeah.
So the Willow Bend Country Club property issue has been solved?
well, it's not completed. Where will you stand with an actual plan of the easement and an easement meets and bounds description?
So we
Town
do
council
have
needs
the-
that to
We do
prepare?
have the meets and bounds description that we can forward.
And he wants a plan, too.
Okay.
Town council wants a plan for both of these.
So
and-
you just
and
to do
meets
an
and bounds.
81X easement plan? Okay.
All right, but obviously,
I mean, I was gonna have
Sooner
these
the better.
done if you guys weren't on it. If you were interested, I'd take all the takings and run with them,
All yours?
you know, if you want. I mean, I got a surveyor on board and an appraiser that I've used extensively in the past, and he's gonna be in town.
well, we don't have any money to pay your surveyor, whereas their surveyor
Rodney,
has already been paid for.
Rodney will want to know what pocket it's coming
Well,
out
it
of.
comes out, it comes out of the appropriation.
Chris, I think that
Yeah.
our survey already covers getting an easement plan.
Yeah.
But if you take the, once we provide that and you work on the, I mean, they're giving us the northings and eastings or whatever, but, if you take it the rest of the way to get it actually,
I think what you actually have to do is a recorded
to
plan.
get it recorded.
So you have to have what's called an 81X, which is a plan showing no property line change, just an easement plan. It shows lands of existing ownership. It's got a whole ditty, but it's under
Yeah.
subdivision control law,
So-
section
I
81X.
believe that's
a permanent
part of what
easement.
Our surveyor's providing, is an
Yeah.
He's gonna do an easement plan?
That's,
Yeah.
that's what town council wants, both the plan and the meets and bounds description
I
for
mean, I
his
could actually do the
easement.
plans at
He'll-
home.
Yeah,
'Cause
well, I
we
mean,
have
they're
all-
already done, though, it
All
sounds
the
like.
plans are record. I could do it all. But if they're already there,
And the survey's been done for
Yeah,
both
if-
sites, so Chris, we could send you what's been compiled already, and then
Yeah.
talk about if there's additional steps that need to be taken.
yeah, there's all record plans on this stuff, and there's all control out in
Yeah.
the field that I found, so it would have been a nice quickie and cheapie. I don't know about cheapie, but a quickie, but, the other ones, well, the other takings will have to be, resolved on where things go on that, what is it, Summerwood, do I get?
Yeah, so can you go to the next one, Summerwood? And so that, for this one, exactly what you were speaking to, the survey has been done, but we do need direction on where the meets and bounds will extend to. So
Well,
we
I
can
mean,
continue
whatever you
coordinating.
need in terms of areas you're gonna impact to construct this, and apparently, now, why are we going like off to the side and across the street that way rather than just straight out to 28? I assume it's because you don't wanna put the building in that hole, right?
Well, there's another option I was looking at that I'd show you once you get your plans done, where this one won't even be located here. I have another,
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that, I've looked at, having the 28 pipe come down the same as it's going, and go down High Sachem, run an easement down a property line. I'm actually meeting people tomorrow morning, and there's another easement that may already exist that the town has that can be used, and we put the pump station out behind the DPW garage. And you wouldn't have to do any taking, you'd have the land, you don't have to go through anything, all you're gonna do is have
You'd
an
have to
easement.
run a lot more pipes though to
No,
get over
yeah, I'd
there.
actually save a lot of money. I'd save probably $750,000 on pipe that I wouldn't have to run. To avoid Summerwood, you'd have to go all the way down and put it where it was gonna go. If you ran into like a little trouble here, saying, okay, we're taking your land, but we're not sewering, you could end up in it with an issue. And then you'd have to
That's what
do-
town council is
you'd have
actually
to do
suggesting
eminent
at this
domain
point.
taking, you'd have to go through town meeting, you'd have to do a lot of stuff.
Well, we have to go through
Yeah.
town meeting on all of these
Yeah,
easements
but
apparently
there's
put in
another-
council.
There's always more than one way to do things.
So, Chris, if
Yeah.
you could send us the proposed path that you're talking about,
Yeah.
let us look at the impact to the current design. If it's close by, it should be minimal
Yeah,
impact.
I've already pretty much redesigned it, so
Okay.
it's doable, but I wanna wait till I get the complete surveyed set, so I know I'm dealing, like, with this sewer, the only thing really you gotta worry about, cause Cape Cod usually doesn't have a pipe drainage system for the most part.
Route
only
28
thing-
does.
The only thing you have to deal with in general is your water line.
Yeah,
So that's your obstacle. I think a lot of the water lines and the design plans are just simply based on whatever the topo was taken 5 feet down.
oh yeah, water lines are easy.
So if this center line topo adjusts some, it also adjusts the height of the water pipe. And with actual field topo, it might adjust, because I don't know, you guys, where'd you get yours off, like,
So it was initially off of GIS,
So
with the
not-
incorporation, with the understanding that the survey would be incorporated by 90%.
and so that could lead to possible errors, so once the survey data is in and you know right where you are, then the design can be really finalized.
And we are making those adjustments as we
Yeah.
go. It just allows us to do the initial layout and then to continue to optimize it as we bring in the survey.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think where this easement is you're talking about
You're going
behind
down High
DPW.
Sachem,
Yeah,
the lots are only 100 feet wide, and just after you get past the tribal land, you have all the DPW land.
it doesn't butt up to High Sachem though.
It butts up to the houses on High Sachem.
Oh, yeah, so we gotta go through somebody's yard to get there.
There's already a 20-foot easement through someone's yard.
Really?
It was in a perfect location.
Do you know what it's for?
Right now, it's for water, but I'm waiting to hear the draft language on the easement to see what it was actually taken for, because it may have been taken for utilities. It may have been just water.
All in the flip of words.
And
Yeah, so
you,
I want to get the deed, the description language, and if that's the case, I'm in, and it would be a perfect location, and whoever maintained it would drive through the highway, they wouldn't have to deal with the people's yard.
Well, don't forget, if there's an easement, if it's a water easement, it doesn't belong to the town. That belongs
That
to
would
the
be
separate
district
Mashpee
policy.
Water District,
This
which is
isn't
not
a
the
district
town.
easement, it's a town easement because it's to serve the highway garage. It's not to serve the water department, it's to serve, it's an easement taken by the town for the highway. Well, I'm waiting to see the legal paperwork.
To bring, in other words, it's a lateral off of the water district's line, the water district doesn't own that pipe, you're saying, basically?
I'm waiting to see the legal mumbo jumbo before I make a before I see what's up. I mean, I have to see how the easement was written and who it's written to.
And you know, a quick way to deal with it would just give Andy Marks a call down at the water district, he's probably got it in his head.
Yeah, no, this just came up basically today, so, through discussion with me and Catherine, and going over some things this morning.
Okay, easement surveys. Okay, so, we need to get easement drawings, is this,
We can go back to the last
all right,
slide.
but yeah, we need to get easements done on those private streets, so I'm assuming,
We'll
I have-
it
coordinate.
don't matter, but they have their surveyor to work on it.
You don't need
so-
the private
You don't-
streets, I
you
can
don't.
do all that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, is this gonna take away from your time on everything else? I mean, they're already got somebody paid
I've
for
already
it.
downloaded all the record plans, I researched every single street, I can write meets and bounds descriptions for all of them and hand them to town council, and I've already discussed it with them.
All right, and you can, and so you just need to know where they are putting the water line exactly when they do their
I
design.
take an easement over the way,
The whole road?
yeah. You don't take it over part of a road, take it over the way. I've done this a lot. In Fall River, I was in charge of streets. And so I would deal with legal issues on streets every day. And I deal with takings and fee takings, easement takings. But,
That makes it easier, you just take the whole street and put the water line whatever the heck we want.
well, you're gonna take it over that because you're gonna have to maintain it. So you're gonna need the width of the street, not just the width of the pipe. But you take the whole thing, it's easier. And each street that's private has record plans that I can refer to in the taking deed, and I can also do a deed description meets and bounds from point A to point B.
Yeah, have you pulled the subdivision plans on all of those? Because
Yeah.
some of the older ones are not quite up to par compared to recent
Some
ones.
are, like anything in surveying, it depends who was there before you.
Yeah, and there were some pretty shaky people there ahead of you.
No, sometimes surveying an acre is harder than surveying 100.
All right, sounds like Chris has got those under control.
All right, well, you guys,
We'll
like,
do the next one about easement.
work together so that you're not both doing the same easement plans, all right?
Yep.
So again, this town council says we need our town meeting articles for these takings, and so the descriptions need to go into those articles. So the sooner we can get those, better. You can put the articles together, and they're holding a space in town meeting for warrant for those easements, and that's
So
that.
we should probably set a goal of like 4 or 5 weeks for that, because we need to get them in by Labor Day, is what Andy said.
Was it that late, or did he not say like August 15th or something?
He said Labor Day for the
He said
warrant.
You said Labor Day for
He
town
did.
meeting articles?
He did.
Okay, all right.
Get them in.
Do it at least 2 days beforehand. It's probably a weekend. All right. GHD, so last time we had, we had, as I said, Chris, Val Peter and Weston and Sampson did a peer review on the treatment plant in particular. And they had a series of recommendations. We had presentations from them. That was actually funded by Rodney out of a separate pocket. But where do we stand with agreeing or not agreeing? Could you give us a write-up, if you can, on the
Yes.
response to them?
So we would propose doing
Last
that as
time
part
there were
of the
some that were hanging.
90% package.
What's that?
We can do that as part of the 90% package, because I do know a number of items that were under evaluation for 90% design.
Right, but I mean, those particular, like, you don't have to send that conversation to SRF guys, you
No.
just let us know what.
Oh, no, this would be
Let us know
for
what
this group
you
here.
did, and Chris.
But we can close the loop on which ones we would recommend putting into or incorporating into the design.
We need Chris's input before you do
Is
that.
Val Peters, is he doing peer review on your plant?
He did the initial
Yes.
value
Yeah.
engineering as part of preliminary design.
Right, okay.
And then he has a contract to provide similar peer review as part of this contract.
Okay, I mean, I can handle all the collection system. I don't know
Yeah,
who Val
and
Peter
we
is,
can-
but I've designed hundreds of miles
Yeah,
of this
Chris-
stuff. And
He just made up a list that we gotta answer now, or they've gotta answer. He pointed out some
List of questions.
alternatives, and just sum it up in 3 to 4 sentences, that's all you
Yeah.
need to do. Can you do that now?
Yeah.
You've
So-
incorporated some, and you're considering others, and we'll let you know.
Well, we got, that's essentially what we got on paper at the last
Yeah.
meeting. There
And
were
we
just
can- we
things
can
that were
have a
still
meeting and
hanging,
go
so
through.
we just
Yeah.
need the hanging ones filled in, right?
But get it all to Chris.
Yes,
Yeah.
And us,
yeah.
please. All right. Construction phase, okay, here we go. Contract amendment number 4. We still have the lady in North
yeah.
Carolina with us?
So Sandy is still with us. Let us try
Okay.
quickly to see if she's audible, and if not, I can cover this for her.
This is what arrived this afternoon, right?
This is a
Yeah,
big
so
chunk. We're
I
not,
have-
we're not gonna
yeah.
complete this tonight. but,
Good, because I haven't read it yet.
Because I actually did read it this afternoon. I had one big
No
question.
one else read it, Tom, so please
Nobody
don't
else,
bring
I
it
was in
up.
Boston.
It's
Do
on the-
not bring it up.
It's on the agenda.
You're gonna waste everybody's time.
Yeah, the
it's
SRF
not.
application doesn't require this to be done. They told me I can be the OPM for application purposes
Yeah, I
and just
don't-
put a number in for what the construction services will be, and really don't have to address it until after the bidding.
At least till after we read it.
Fine,
All right,
it should be on the next
Hear you?
meeting's agenda.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
well, I just have one question I
got
want to
today.
bring up because I did read it and I have a big question. Then we'll be
let
done.
me, do you mind if I give a brief overview? I know it's a 27-page document,
Go
so
ahead.
we just wanted to give a very brief overview of what it encompasses. Sandy, I don't think anybody can hear you.
Yeah.
So let me lead this discussion, and if there's
Can't
questions for
see her
you, we
either.
can relay them.
Can she be on the
Yeah.
screen or what?
So the document before you, Amendment 4, is for the bidding and construction phase services of 3 construction contracts for the treatment plant and influent pump station, Route 28 in the North Collection System, which is Contract 2, and the South Collection and 2 pump stations. And as we mentioned previously, at least a draft of the agreement needs to be in the SRF application. So the very first part of this contract is pre-qualification. So for the treatment facility, because of the size of the facility, over $10 million, all the contractors that want to bid on it have to go through a pre-qualification process, which is typically done before bidding. So with the schedule that we're currently looking at, that's something that would start next month in August and run through October. And they put together a qualifications package that's reviewed by a committee that's put together typically with town members, with commission members, and typically with the engineer also. And so that's a pre-screening of which contractors can bid on your project.
All right, so you just answered my one question.
Perfect.
Was why were this only being done for contract number 1, not 2 and 3?
Yeah.
It was like, I kept looking through the rest of it, where's 2 and 3 in terms of pre-qualification?
And so there's
So you're
two
saying it's
different-
not needed for them because
No.
they're not an individual?
It's the bidding laws, Mass General Law. So collection systems bid under 3039M, so it's considered horizontal construction.
Different rules?
Not vertical construction. Vertical construction is the one that has pre-qualification and the dollar limits.
Okay, well, that was the one question that I had, other than not understanding most of the rest of it. That was my big question, was
Yeah.
why only one?
The buildings incidental to pump stations and that stuff fall under 3039 as well, so they don't have to go through any of that. I mean, you're only doing the little sheds over your control panels and all anyway, but a lot of pump stations have a complete building with everything.
Yeah,
But
no, I mean, this
they're
is,
exempt.
And that's part of the
contract
building.
number 1 is the treatment plant.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that has to
Yeah.
go through.
So that has a
the
slightly different rule
It's a-
book that we
it's a
have to play
different
with.
Mass
All right.
General law.
Yeah.
Joe wants to go home, I know, so that's as far as we'll go
Oh,
with
I
this.
can talk fast if you
We'll,
want. Yeah.
no, let's
Why don't you finish reading
give
that
everybody a
page
chance
and
to,
then go?
Yeah.
okay,
Let her finish reading the page.
okay,
Just so
or
we all
explain
have
it.
our minds on
Okay,
what we're
okay,
doing.
so you know what it is, all right, gotcha.
So this outlines the schedule that the scope was built around. We just talked about the pre-qualification process. The next step is the actual bid process, which in the current schedule runs from November 2021 to January 2022. And then construction is projected to be a 24-month or a 2-year process. And then there's a post-construction period, which is 12 months. And when we were developing the schedule, part of what drives the construction contract, we've incorporated longer lead times for equipment, which is a result of the current economy, and the same thing for the piping. And then we've also been working with the town of what are constraints for working on the streets and incorporated those. So for instance, on the main streets, we can't construct in the summer. So that dictates how long the overall contract is. Can you go to the next slide?
Oh, Joe just wanted to see the first page.
Oh, we can save all the rest of this for later. We can go on,
Yeah.
whatever you want.
It's right there on
Yeah.
a X chart, I forgot the name of it.
Oh, yeah, so that's the first page of 4 pages of the construction schedule that everything was based on. We're planning in August to do a much more detailed review of that schedule. But I know this is a long meeting already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other question that you reminded me of was in your contract, you have like, it only goes up to a specified predicted date that the project's supposed to be completed. That worried me because there's obviously the prospect of delays that are not our fault or your fault, materials supply probably. That, I don't like that. I mean, I don't like it like, oh, if we don't get the project done by, January 1st, 2023, then you guys need to get paid more to stay on the job. And it seems like the job is the job, and if it slips, then it slips, and why would you have that provision in there?
So we're stating the assumptions that we base the budget on. It's based on a certain length of time, right? We have to put parameters as we're developing that budget. So we wanted to make sure we outlined how long we envision the contract running for.
Well, can we envision it running an extra 6 months? I'm just, like I said, we won't have an appropriation
Yeah.
for that. I mean, it's a big enough chunk of change to begin with.
We can, let us look at the schedule and the budget and see how much flexibility there is in that.
And it may not likely get signed by the date you want it signed
Let's
either.
ask someone who's been caught in that wheel before.
One, it's nothing that you have to do in a hurry. It's
Oh, yeah,
something
I know,
not
I
till
know.
you're bidding. It's something that might be wise to discuss in executive session or two amongst the board and any powers
Yeah,
that be.
it's not
'Cause
happening
Such a
tonight.
big financial item.
Yeah.
That it might be something you may want to consider discussing privately in an executive session with possibly,
So we'll stick that on the end of
Place.
next month's meeting then.
yeah.
Should be in a better place. And meanwhile, think about the schedule, because I don't like things that say that we're gonna have to pay you extra for, my initial concern was, I was under the impression that the whole bidding process was already covered under your current contract. I thought Greg had implied that all along, but now I get told, no, it's just in there as an additional service that we gotta pay more for, so,
So I guess to your point of like if there's a time frame for the construction that we're anticipating in the schedule, if we're saying it's a 2-year contract, that's what's going into the bid documents. And so the contract has 2 years, and if it goes past that, there's liquidated damages that you can hold against them, and that's how you recoup, that's one method of recouping some of your financial costs if the schedule goes on longer than anticipated. So I mean, the schedule we're anticipating goes into the bid documents. I mean, we're establishing, hey, contractor, you have 2 years to
You're
do
held to
this.
it.
And so they have to, if they go past it, it's not, because it's cost everybody money to go past it, it's not just.
I want to ask Chris and Greg a question. I've dealt with a lot of major projects, and probably the best line when it was all done with thousands of documents. Is there going to be any incentive to being on schedule or ahead of schedule? And is there a penalty phase that's accepted in this industry? Because I haven't laid pipe before.
So as Sarah said, liquidated damages is the penalty that.
can you use the mic, why don't you go up to the table, Greg, because we're on
So
TV and we want
liquidated
the record.
damages, as Sarah said, is the penalty. So liquidated damages are established ahead of time, and it says for every day that they go over, if you agree to that, carry that value, you can establish how much it costs the town, how much it will cost you guys to pay the engineer to cover that time, and it's established and it's put into the contract, and the contractor knows that. in terms of incentives, usually the only incentives you have are when you actually want to pay more money. Like when they did in Indiana, they built a highway and they said, okay, if you, for every day early you finish, or every week early or whatever, we're gonna give you X thousands of dollars to finish that project early. That's the only really incentives that I've seen. I don't know, Chris might have other experiences with it.
That's how I got materials ahead of my competition that was investing in the same things.
I've been on a lot of jobs that have gone over the time frame. and
Yep.
I can't recall one where we actually paid liquidated damages. It depends on your relationship with the contractor.
Yep.
And things come up, and, you know, people.
Well, I
leave-
was asking if it's in your
But-
industry and you're answering it
Oh,
on
yeah,
that
no, it
basis.
is, but it doesn't often happen.
Well, Chris.
And I
but-
agree with that as well. I mean, we don't, it comes down to your, you know, whether or not you want to enforce it. And if you've got a contractor that's, you know, not one that you're enjoying working with, then you've got that hammer and you can use it.
I've had an experience with one contractor that was like that, and it was very difficult in Braintree, and we had to let him go. But in general, whoever gets this contract, it's really likely that I have worked with them before. Because I've worked, you know, I've been doing construction management like this on projects for the past 6 years. I've been contract 4, amendment 4, and that's what I've done for a living the past since 2015. And we've done some that were SRF, where we had to do the reimbursements and all the other things. But what I thought, I know you mentioned the bidding stuff, if that would be part of the old contract, the design contract, you thought it might have been, and maybe it is,
Yeah,
because I
it
looked.
was
So
pointed
the
out
re-
to
so
me
the-
that it's
so the re-
additional services.
so the
is
reason-
what
so
Let
the
me just
listed.
finish where I was going
Okay,
with
go
that.
ahead. Yep.
On contract amendment 2, it was like 1.65 million, and that was to design, up to final design, of 9.3 miles of sewer and 6 pump stations. What's now actually getting designed is 6 miles of sewer and 2 pump stations. So there should be money left over on that 1.65 that shouldn't get spent to design 2/3 of the sewer and 1/3 of the pump stations. And so maybe there is money left in that. I don't know what's been billed out, but I was gonna try to find out exactly what numbers were billed out and if they're separated, but, so if you're doing 2/3 of the work, you should have come in at 2/3 the cost. I know there's some
Well,
preliminary plans that were added. but-
they fully designed the system before we got to just before town meeting, and the system came all the way up here to town hall and all that.
No, I saw
That's
all
why I was talking about gas pipes, because while we were having a meeting here in town hall, they were out there drilling, and there was a gas pipe that was 5 feet away from where the gas company marked it, DigSafe, and they hit it. And so Rodney and everybody's running out there to
My
find out
point
what's
is,
going on.
they didn't have to go to final design with any of this and didn't have to do 4 pump stations. And that was all included in their bid. So the bid, you would think, would come under.
You're on,
Because
you're on
it's-
notice, guys.
It's less than, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no,
If it was me paying for it and I'm paying you to design 6 pump stations, you only have to design 2, I'm still not gonna pay you
Yeah.
for 6. So you'd think that, you know, that's something I wanna kinda look at, and
Yeah, they did 75% design on the whole system, and now we're cutting back now when you get to the
with no
90%
pump
design.
stations though.
Well, no, I mean, they
No,
had preliminary
zero pump
designs for the pump stations.
They
Right.
didn't have any.
We
There was like-
did work on the
The
design of
calculation.
the
There may
pump
have been some,
stations.
but it's
Yeah.
limited, but
Yeah.
it's not, it's a lot less of a scope
So we
than
have,
what was proposed.
we have broken out the approximate value of what's left. A portion of that did go to the police details that were not anticipated originally, but we can review those numbers.
Yeah.
Who paid
I
the
just want to
police
answer the
details?
second,
We had
I
to-
just wanted to answer the question about the SRF, sorry, about the bid, why it wasn't in the original contract, is because it's actually eligible for SRF
Yeah,
funding. So we tend not to put it in the design so that you can get reimbursement of that money. That's,
Good,
that's,
good to know.
What are we
That's-
talking about, the police details?
no, well, police details is separate, but for the engineering, the bidding, the reason bidding isn't included in the design scope and it was included in the construction phase services scope is because SRF won't reimburse you for design. but they will reimburse you for construction-related costs. So anything that's related to the construction, including construction phase services and police details, they'll reimburse you for, and that includes bidding. So we put it in there so you can get 0% financing on that chunk of the money as well.
Once you're 100% accepted, and you move forward,
Yeah,
everything's eligible,
all right.
Next.
So
except private property.
I guess, were you getting at that we would have money to spend on something else?
Well, you
Because
said
once
that-
we're,
I was
once
saying you
we've
thought- you said you
committed
thought-
to one
you
thing,
thought-
I don't know if we can just
No,
shuffle
I
it
know,
around.
but you thought it was in for bidding services, but there may be some left over there, was my point. And
Yeah,
it
it
should-
just,
the
there
cost-
should
the
be.
cost
I
shouldn't
agree with
come in
you. There should
1.65,
be.
Because you built a 3,000 square foot house instead of a 4,000,
Yeah.
so you should pay for 3,000.
There were actually two contracts, a separate one for
Yeah,
that.
no, I know.
And,
The second one.
yeah, there
the
should be
first one was
something
preliminary,
left.
and
It's just,
yeah.
the point was that we can't just take it and spend it on something else willy-nilly. It's probably gotta go back into some kind of
Next.
general fund or whatever.
It depends how you
Or,
structured the.
yeah,
bond
actually,
and
it's
the
probably
article.
borrowing that we paid for that with, so maybe there's some extra borrowing money, and maybe there's a way to transfer it to some future thing, but whatever. All right, so amendment number 4, read it, talk about it. We'll bring it up at next month's meeting. An executive session, is that what we said? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Okey dokey. North Carolina, you can go now.
Hold on, I have a
But-
motion.
A motion?
Are you through with the subjects under the projects?
No.
Well, I thought you were moving on. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's 2 more items left here. The civil plan update, driveways, access roads. Now, here's the thing, at the last meeting, Joe had asked for one of the driveway to the DPW property, the transfer station property, be widened to 24 feet at the end of the meeting, and we agreed to that. And it had to do with long trucks
Turning
getting
radius
in
of
or out.
large
Yeah.
trucks.
And we had hoped, and we did get some response. Howard had been working on that. I don't know if he's set up to tell us what he came up with.
So he had
But-
to go be a good father, so
He
he's
left?
logged off, but
Okay.
we can talk to that.
All right, well, basically what he said was that he didn't think we needed anything that wide to make it work. I want to suggest that we don't go back to whatever it was, 12 feet or 15 feet, but maybe just do 20 feet like the rest of our roads, Joe, and work with that.
Why don't we leave it on the issue? Let's let Howard get back to us, and if he says 20 feet is adequate for a 53-foot that'll get in there sooner or later, fine. My point was, you've either got to turn a 53-foot truck around in there, or you have to give it an access to get out, if you're not going to have room enough to turn it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have enough room to turn it, so it's going to have to go through and get out the other side, because you're not going to back out this access road.
Right, so he specifically, in his email, and I forwarded that to you.
He
Joe,
said he'd
today.
get back to
He's-
us.
Well, no, but he said that in his initial email was we did not need 24 feet to handle a truck that he was running the turning radius on. But when do we need an answer to that? I mean, I was hoping to get that settled tonight so you can finish up your
The
plans.
day they're laying asphalt.
Well,
It's
so
a
we
long
don't,
way away.
Well,
so we did the turning radius with, you can see up here on the screen, this is showing the turning radius with any truck that would be coming in once this facility is constructed. And you can go all the way around the flow, and you can see that the turning radii, it may be hard to see here, but you are within the road bounds up here. What we looked at, Joe, and I don't know if this is what is addressing your concern, is, for example, in construction, if there's a larger vehicle that's anticipated other than a 40-foot wheelbase, for example, and this is, a 40-foot long wheelbase with an axle in the front cab type situation of turning. And so in construction, if there's this was done with a 62-foot, and you can see that, yes, it's a little bit outside the paved road, but that
coming from the wrong
size.
direction. We're not coming out of the Ashers Heights subdivision. It should be coming from the left, not the right.
It's the
'Cause we
same
want-
either way.
It's the same either way. It's
We want
equal.
the construction traffic to come from 28 onto Asher's Path where the double-barreled area is and straight to Carlton, so it doesn't go
So
by
they
that
ran
whole
it because it's the
neighborhood in
tighter
Asher's Heights
radius,
there.
just to make sure.
What's that?
They ran it because it's the tighter radius to make sure.
Yeah, but
So
I mean,
even,
it's just
yeah, we
not-
we want
not
the flexibility
really
there.
where we're going.
So so in construction, if there is a larger vehicle than what you would anticipate during the facility, I mean, the only thing you'll anticipate delivering during the facility is chemical delivery, solids hauling. There's not gonna be, you know, the larger bed truck that may happen would be construction likely. And if it is a 62-foot, truck, you can see here, it goes a little bit outside the paved area, but that shouldn't matter because the road won't be paved during construction and it's a
There's no
gravel
delivery
road.
trucks that are
I mean, you
62
could
feet
always
long.
just widen.
Exactly.
Why did you go to 62 feet?
To push the limits.
I mean, you could,
Yeah,
you
to
could
push-
widen your radius.
Why don't you just do
Widen your
what we
radius.
asked for, was a 45 or a 44 footer?
And that's what we've done though.
Okay.
That's-
Would you
that's
please
this
show
right
me the
here.
box that you had a moment ago?
There you go, that's 40 foot.
Stop for a moment.
There you go.
As Tom's saying, deliveries and access to this site will be coming in from the bottom right-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Now, you can say you can go straight around and out again, right?
Correct.
Fine. I want to
Okay.
cancel all requests for wider than 12 feet going in that top thing. Except when you make a turn like that in a square, you've got to have access enough for a 44-footer to come around those corners. That's all. We didn't do that in the factory where I was. And I looked at it, I said, oh, this is dangerous as hell. I came back a week later, somebody put parking spaces along the road. Within 24 hours, we had a 40-footer that had 45 or 50,000 pounds of paper on it drive over a car.
Wow.
He tried to swing to go in, wasn't thinking, and the next thing he knew, he had 16 wheels up on the trunk of what used to be a Chevrolet. All right, and shit like that happens
glad it
if
was
you
a
don't
Chevy,
provide for
at
it
least.
in your original design. So you're comfortable that they can drive a 44-footer
Correct.
around that loop?
That's
I'm
correct,
happy.
yeah.
I thought you
Put
were
your
talking
template
about a much longer
Oh, it was a
flatbed
software
truck. I thought you
program,
said
yeah,
like
to do
63
everything.
feet is what.
I
it
didn't
is.
And
never
also
said
checked it
Bring in
against
a
the
plan
Mashpee
that shows
template.
it templated,
They can't get
Yeah.
over the road.
you know, if it can do it.
Yeah, because that's
It
what
I
Howard
don't
was
know
gonna
where
look
that
at
number
is
came from.
where,
Anastasia said, we went to the limit. That's where that number came from.
yeah, well, there's plenty of 63-foot trucks out there on the highway.
Well, they can simply bring, you can pull templates and just put them on the drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah,
what they,
and
that's what
that's how
what
we
that
developed
should be.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could just show you templates. They do look like pretty tight corners.
They
For-
do.
for,
As
know,
long as
they
you
look
get a
like very tight
45-footer
corners.
through there,
Yeah,
that's
but
all I
you'd have
care
to
about.
template it and see
Because
if it
sooner
can
or
work.
later, we're gonna have to replace a pump or something
Yeah.
else, and they're gonna
No,
put it on the
fully
back. They're gonna, end load it on somebody else's shipment coming into Cape Cod.
yeah.
So they're gonna pull a 44,000-pound truck in there, wreck the roads, and they're gonna hit the curbs and come around the corner and squat on someone's car if they're not adequate. So
And we
that
can
looks
run this
adequate,
exact-
I'm happy.
All right,
So what do you want to do with the driveway to the transfer station?
Well,
Because right
Tom,
now,
look
that's,
at me,
that's
please.
showing the
It
24.
has to be wide enough as you come around the corner, so it isn't gonna be 12 feet anymore. Because a 12-footer won't work in there.
Well.
They're working it
the-
out.
the point of this in the red was that you didn't have to come in from there. You could just come in from Carlton and
You
loop
can
around the
turn it
building.
around in there, yes.
Yeah.
So
Because,
it's
you know,
not-
like I said,
It's
I'm
not
hoping
gonna
not
be
to
12
have
feet wide.
much
is it?
coming
What's-
through the
What have you
transfer
drawn
station.
it as now?
That's 24.
I thought they were 20 foot
Can
wide.
but
you-
can,
you
No,
would it be
template a
okay if we
plan
do the
and email it?
minimum width
24
to,
feet there.
to accommodate that turning radius? If you'll
Well,
let
it's
us,
not 12, so what
No,
are you
it's-
recommending?
we can have that recommendation for the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, just if you could get a plan like that with the
Yeah.
44-foot templates, trucks.
Perfect,
You know, you
yeah.
could do the couple truck templates, you know. I used to live in Missouri, show me. So, but if you,
Yeah.
They are all
The
here.
control in that radius shows the fact that the
It's
road
all
in the
templated.
transfer station is
I
only
mean,
12 feet
bring
wide.
one in that has templates on it.
That-
That's why it had to
one-way
be wide
driveway.
enough
End of
for
story.
the driver to get the advantage to get on it. That's why I said 24 to begin with. That would give them enough turning radius to get onto a 12-footer.
Yeah, but then it doesn't have to continue the
You
rest
don't
of it.
need
It's just
it
the
anymore.
radius.
They're gonna come up with a 20-foot probably road. As long as the loop's there, that they
you
can
last?
get in and out.
Okay, you guys,
You
come on,
last on
move
the
on.
agenda.
Next.
No, that's good. I'm glad you're happy, Joe.
Taking you out of order.
All right, and then the final item, I'm sorry, you're the last guy.
I was just sitting
The
there.
fire suppression design update. Sorry about that, I didn't even think about it. So where do we stand with the fire suppression?
Well,
Yeah, use the mic.
Geez, he's been waiting for this all. this
Well,
whole
we-
meeting.
Remind the public what your name is, too,
David Morris.
David Morris.
David
He's our
Morris,
building superintendent.
Yeah, I went over with the fire department, and they have the three buildings, they had the dry suppression system, which, they approved, and it was recommended by the state fire marshal, so I approved it, and, we look good on that.
So we're all set?
Yes.
Design can go. All right. Well, that was nice and short. I'm sorry, I should have taken you first
You
before we had
should've.
that really lengthy discussion. All right, Joe, have you got update on Foslock? There's been a lot going on, I know, in terms of back and forth, so
Drive home there.
want to update the rest of the board?
He does.
One of the problems we have in town is the pollution that the septic systems have caused, and its example, Santuit. And a careful examination, in fact, the original Santuit report, you gotta read all 250 pages, because on page something like 59, there's a paragraph that is really the summary of the report. It was unfortunate that it was there rather than at the beginning or the end. What it amounts to is phosphorus acts like a spark plug to the growth of cyanobacteria. In other words, it'll grow with nitrogen, but it doesn't go crazy. It doesn't change from a green to the blue-green that gives off the toxins that poison animals and give people problems, that represent a biohazard. And that's what we have. We have a biohazard at Santuit. And I guess
Starting up
Ashumet
in
got on today.
Wakeby Pond,
No, Wakeby's clean.
Yeah.
Ashumet and Santuit will put off limits to swimming again today.
Again today? Because they just took Santuit out.
So the one at Santuit had a huge, expensive evaluation done, and it's on the website under shellfish, but it's a couple hundred pages. The summary in there is, and I gave everybody a copy of it, it's on page 59. What it does is recognize the problem with the phosphorus. Septic systems didn't put the phosphorus in it, okay? It's there. It probably came from the cranberry bogs.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's recycling. That's the problem. We can put sewers in that neighborhood, but there's no guarantee we can stop it because the phosphorus will still be there. Now, there's a few ways to chemically treat it to get rid of it.
Do you want to give them the
Alum
numbers?
is one.
You want to give them the scale, Joe, of the recirculation versus the sewer? Because that report said 78% of the phosphorus in the water couple is being recycled from the
I
bottom
gave
sediments.
it to everybody in writing.
Yeah,
That's what
I
you
know, but
quoted.
for the public and everything
All I'm
else.
trying to do is summarize it
5%
so we
sewer.
won't be here all night.
Don't
You
worry about it,
mind?
but it's an
I'm
important number.
speaking. Can I continue?
Go ahead.
So Andy, and I don't mean to speak in his behalf, but he and I had discussions of this before, that Santuit's critical, and it's a classic example. And we have a basis study, which was well done, that we can work from. And my first thought was, we gotta get sewers up there early in our process.
Right.
But there is some recognition outside of that report in other areas that I've been able to find. And they all say that this phosphorus acts as the spark. If you don't get rid of the phosphorus, cleaning up the nitrogen isn't gonna solve your problem. So I'm backing off on a request that I've had with Tom for a long time, put the damn sewers around Santuit in phase one. And he fought me on it, and I have to
It's just
admit,
not there.
he was right. Okay? But we've got to address the phosphorus in it. The state of Massachusetts and the state of New York are the only two states in the United States that won't allow the use of a thing called Phoslock, phosphorus locking. It's a unique technology that when it's thrown in the water as it floats down on bentonite clay, some of the atoms of the lanthanum leave the bentonite clay, grab a piece of phosphorus, and it turns into a crystal that's inert, not water soluble, and will not go into the biological food chain. It drops to the bottom like a piece of sand. It's perhaps the cleanest system But Massachusetts has a law, they won't let you put anything into a pond unless they approve it. 48 of the 50 states allow you to use this material because it's non-toxic by nature. But Massachusetts is holding us up to get approval. I'm not saying we're gonna do it, but I'm saying we can't even get approval to address it expeditiously. There are other things we can do. We can dump herbicides in there, but then we're gonna have to do it again and again and again.
You don't wanna
We
do
can
that.
put alum in there, and there's sort of a familiar thing here. It presents aluminum for the phosphate to grab onto, but it's not permanent. It has a nice shock effect, and the first year or two looks good, then you generally have to keep doing it.
Can I
Now,
men-
there
can I
are exceptions to that,
mention
Tom,
one thing,
there are
Dick?
exceptions to everything, and I'm not listening to any of your 1 or 2% perceptions right now. Let me finish, and then you can criticize me.
No, I'm not absolutely not. No criticize. I just wanted to point out that that aluminum was done in a Shumat pond to take care of the phosphorus plume from the old treatment plant on the base. So we have a history of the aluminum being used, the alum. Actually, alum is the way it was, so go ahead.
And assuming is not cured, that's the problem. My point here is, I'm fighting like hell to get Mass to approve Fosroc. The choice on doing it will still be up to the town, to Natural Resources and the selectmen, not us as sewer. But it takes me off the street where I was saying, let's sewer there because it'll do good. It turns out that it probably won't have a significant effect up there. So in a later stage, it belongs rather than in phase one. So I just wanted to clear that up. I'll keep working with CPRO and then the Bureau of, and there's 3 of them in Massachusetts, plus the DEP, and some other people. So that's where it rests, and it's gonna rest with Ashley Fisher to eventually put together a recommendation for the town.
Yep. I'd just like to congratulate Joe because he's done a ton of work.
Yeah,
He's been
thank you.
copying me on the emails, and there's all kinds of studies that he's provided and background, and he's been communicating with the DEP staff. And certainly with, we actually have input from DNR. She provided a background article on the phosphate problem, and lo and behold, I read the thing, and it backs you up. Meanwhile, she's pushing with this Corps of Engineers project she mentioned last time to have the pond dredged. And if you remember the project, it basically filled in about 25% of the pond with dredge spoils, plus they needed to put it on the conservation land next door. So if Joe can get this to work, and he's been talking to Senator Sear and everybody he can think of to get the state to move on this. So kudos to Joe. And, you know, that seems like a great way to go, and I appreciate that. He's right, it's not within the sewer committee, it's not a sewer, but it's great work that Joe's been doing, and hopefully that can work. Now, we did get, for some reason, the selectmen took a motion or something at their last meeting to direct the sewer commission to solve the problem in Santuit Pond, and I don't know how we can possibly do that, except that Joe's doing his part, because, you know, one of the things that Ashley did say, though, that if they go her way with the dredging, was that the Corps of Engineers
That's
and
not Ashley's
the...
way, that's the Wampanoags. They think they can get a government grant to finance it.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that if they went that way, it's 100% federally funded if they can get that funding, but then, according to her, they would expect us to sewer the upper part of the pond or whatever is contributing area there, so that there's no more new addition from the septic system. So that one would put us under pressure to do some sewering up there earlier than we, right now it's in phase 3 of the plan. So,
Can I make a motion?
yeah, I don't see any update from the DNR on the dredging study, I guess
All
I
right.
missed it.
My motion is that future sewer committee meetings be conducted during a weekday between 2 and 4 p.m. so that we can now move into the same phase that Andy so eloquently put us We are in the construction phase now. We have to communicate with people that work normal lives and have jobs. A lot of the commissioners have no job, and if you don't feel that it's a problem for you, speak up. But I am making a motion that we meet somewhere like 2 to 4 in the afternoon. Tom, you can pick the day of the week. I could care
Well,
less.
our
That's
regular
my
meetings
motion. Do
are.
I hear a second?
Well, okay, let's have some conversation. The reason that meetings are usually held at night is for the convenience of the citizens to be able to attend the meetings and provide their commentary. We don't want to be accused of basically timing our meetings so that nobody can come.
Are they
That might have an
recorded?
interest. Not necessarily. The only meetings that actually recorded are the ones that are televised, like we are tonight. So there will be a recording of this that'll be prepared, and eventually it goes on the town's webpage, or the.
I'd like to
Yes.
amend
Facebook page.
my motion then, that we ask the town to record them, and we have those meetings between 2 and 4 PM.
Any particular reason for those particular hours, Jill? Like, we met last month at 4. Is that,
It's
Not a good time?
Serious inconvenience for any professional help that we want to have. That's why. I want to move ahead to the construction phase, and this meeting at 6 PM is a courtesy.
yeah, well, this
To
was
nothing.
set up
Doesn't-
without
doesn't
my
work.
knowledge by the town clerk, so. All right,
Let's take it under advisement.
No, I want to vote. That's what I asked for, and someone seconded it.
Okay.
okay. What do you think, Chris? Chris, you're one of those people that's working here in town hall. What's your preference in terms of a time? I mean,
Well, let me think. So 2 to 4.
Trying to be
so I get
compromised
home at
between you and the
5 o'clock
public.
and could have dinner with my kids, or get home at 9:30.
I still
or,
I'm having trouble with this one.
I still gotta walk the dog, and
Me
it's gonna be
too.
dark.
or,
you
I
know?
mean,
But I see that because there's gonna be contractors on
Yeah.
site, and generally, they all have a point person, and they'd be around. I mean,
you can
and
reach
it
people.
depends where the contractor's from. Are they gonna be here, you know, I mean, we gonna get an off-Cape person? I'd say with the magnitude of this project, you know, I'm gonna talk to a few people that I know that, see if they're interested in bidding. So it depends who you get, but I see merit in it.
now, I know one person who works full-time, and that's Andy Gottlieb, our selectman liaison.
He's around during the day, and he's,
Yeah.
works on his own. It's,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, it's up to the board. I know you guys are all, you know.
His
you're not-
office
you're
is
not
in
9 to
Brewster.
5ers like me.
We used to be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
No,
we're
but,
sympathetic.
now that I accepted this, I think I'm gonna 9 to 5 for quite a few more years than
Well,
I
I
anticipated.
guess if I was to say 3 o'clock, that probably is just as bad for the nighttime public, because they're all working till at least 4:30 or 5 in the normal work schedule, so.
Most of
It's
the
either-
meeting at 6, Tom,
while
so it's
they're-
defeating it at 6. That's my part of the discussion. Is there any other discussion besides you and I? Let's find out what the committee thinks.
Yeah. No, but this is discussion time. We have a motion in a
Yeah.
second,
Comment.
so. yeah.
I think you have merit in what you're suggesting, but the problem is that we haven't even bid anything yet, so we don't have to change it until such time as we have some contractors. So why do we have to vote on it tonight?
You have 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and tonight, I guess, 5 people that try and have a normal life. And that's one of the issues I'm trying to address.
We've been abusing GHD for decades. They can take it, we know that.
No, we're paid for it. And don't you
Oh,
think
we
your
pay for
hourly
it.
rate
Pay for it whenever
reflects
they're
the
here.
overtime that all their people are putting
Yeah.
in for us?
No,
When it's
they don't.
unnecessary.
Really pay
They're
every girl
they're
that
at
comes
work
speak on the
40
phone.
hours a week.
You guys aren't taking overtime,
We don't
right?
get overtime.
No, they don't get overtime. Oh, one more
Promise
thing
we don't
on
get
that. Sorry to bring it up now, on this amendment number 4,
It's not about you.
that has bonuses in it. I told you,
I will
like on the
take those
last one,
out.
take the bonuses out.
were
We
able
don't
to
pay
take
for
them
your
out. Yeah,
bonuses.
they'll come out.
Okay, sorry.
Any other discussion?
No, just,
Mike?
we have, you know,
What's
it's between our,
Well, will you be less cranky at 2 to 4?
Damn right.
Then let's go for it.
oh, Jesus, and that's, settles that right there. But,
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
gonna come to a meeting if I'm available anyways.
Yeah, I don't care.
The longer I'm out of the house, the happier my wife is, so.
I
Although
like, I
it is-
like Joe's idea of 2 to 4.
Yeah.
For the very reasons you've all talked
Yeah.
about.
So nobody else likes to go to the beach or take a hike in the afternoon, any of that stuff, or
Go in the
just
morning.
sitting around waiting for a meeting?
Brad wants to, I think you're gonna respond.
Yeah, how's it work for you, Brad?
Most days I'm free in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
When it gets to be this hour at night, I want to be home.
Okay. Yeah, this is an excessively long, what the heck?
Is this building ever
Call
closed?
From 9? Oh, well,
That's
geez.
the
Can we
actual
call
time,
a
yes.
motion?
We used to do planning board meetings until 1 in the morning. The whole point was to beat last call at
We
Bobby
can hold
Burns.
hands and hug later. Can we call a motion?
Those days are gone, I hope.
All right, I'm going to call a motion. We've had our discussion. All those in favor of having future meetings? And now, I would put one condition on this, assuming that the town manager or the town clerk doesn't have a problem with it.
Right.
All right?
That's fine.
That we have future meetings at 2 o'clock and try to get out of here by 4. I guess that's the motion, right, Joe?
Yes, but
All
they're
right,
administrators. We vote for it or against it, and if they say no, we're overruled. So just call the vote.
Yeah, well, whatever. So I am calling vote. I just clarified the motion, 2 o'clock from now on. Our meetings are the the third Thursday of every month. Those are the regular meetings. I'm sure we're going to be calling extra
It may have to
meetings.
be recorded if at all possible.
Right, which means the television guy's got to be here.
Yes.
During normal work hours instead of overtime.
Yeah. All right. So, we want to do a roll call, or you just want to yell?
Just,
Okay, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Anybody against? Nope, sounds like, all right, that's unanimous, 7-0. Got that, now Katrina.
Hey, we
Wait a
accomplished
second,
something
Katrina, does that
tonight.
work for you? Okay.
We changed our meeting time.
You forget-
Aren't we all proud?
If
Let's
you
hope we're more productive.
changed it. Well, that's why we started meeting at 4, so you guys could go home a little
Thanks,
earlier.
Joe.
All right, so you know that we're going to hear from town council when he can meet with us next week, so we'll have a 2 o'clock meeting, I assume, or sometime during the day next week with town council to talk about Summerwood.
Okay.
And television guy, let's see. Stop recording.
Behind.
No, that's just a switch on the guy's wall. I already asked him to stop recording.
If
Yeah,
it's critical, spit it out.
What?
well, I mean, he's talking about, we have reorganization on the agenda. Anybody concerned that we can do that next meeting?
What does that mean?
Why don't you correspond with us?
We are still live. Jesus. I pressed the button to shut you off. All right. Okay, so we have, we're still live, so it's hard when the guy's in a whole separate room over there. All right, so the next item, there is no correspondence, other than the stuff, the email stuff you've seen. So the next item is annual reorganization. We need to elect a chair, a vice chair. Well, actually, we don't need a vice chair, but we traditionally had one, and what we do need is a clerk. I don't know if it's clerk/secretary, but, so right now we have a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. Let's see, any nominations for chair?
I nominate Tom Fadala.
Oh, second.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other nominations for chair? Oh, geez, I'm stuck with it. All right,
I
I'll
have
take a
a
vote on that. All those in favor?
Before you have a vote, let's have a comment here, if people want to comment on you.
Oh.
I just want to bring up and recognize Tom for all his dedication, the time commitment, his passion to this project. And he's been on it a long time. I've only been in town a few years, but I just think you need to be recognized for that commitment that you've put to the project.
You're here.
And it's only been 33 years I've been sitting
Okay,
on
now we
this
can vote.
commission. And
Okay, we don't need a speech, we're just going to vote.
Shut up, or he'll pull back his nomination.
this is definitely shortening my life, though, having to do all
Pull
of
it
this
back.
chair stuff. All right, so I guess we have a nomination, no other, and we have a second, so any further discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, I think. I'm telling you, this is a killer of a job. to be retired and having to deal with so much stress. I mean, you saw like the kind of stuff that's the new stress, you know?
Come on, you got
Having-
Chris gonna
having
do
to
half
deal
your
with
job.
Chris and all of that stuff now.
Come on, that's what we have, Chris. Chris is
All
gonna
right.
take it off your shoulders.
We have any nominations for vice chair?
Okay, nominate Joe Lyons.
Him again? Okay. Is there a second to
Second.
nominating Joe? All right, I'm gonna call that for Al, because,
The second.
let him have a motion on something now that he's a rookie. You have any problem with that, Brad?
Yeah.
You do?
No, I don't have.
Okay, so, motion was made by Ken, seconded by Al. Any discussion? All right, I'll just say, similarly, he's been on here the second longest, although, like, I don't know, how long you been, like 5, 6 years, 7 years, maybe more. Any case, but Joe puts a lot of work in on a lot of these side projects.
Almost as long.
This phosphorus thing is, I mean, Joe's done two great things for us. One, he does the side stuff like the phosphorus,
I want to
and,
vote against it. Call the vote.
and he wants to, he tries to keep our meetings short, which everybody appreciates. So, that's my commentary.
Get
Take a vote. All in favor of Joe as vice chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? You son of a gun. What's the problem?
Okay,
All right, well, you lose.
you do.
You're stuck with it. And now we really need a clerk. The statute says president and chairman and clerk. But anybody want to make a motion to select somebody as our
I
clerk?
nominate Mike Rapaz.
I'll second that.
Wow. Oh,
Motion's been made
so
and
sneaky
seconded.
job, Ken. You don't want to take any more minutes,
All
huh?
in favor?
I never did.
You did one
We
meeting.
gotta share the workload, as Brad told me a little bit.
You
There's
took one
nothing to
note.
do.
All
One
those in
meeting.
favor?
Is there any other nominations?
Aye.
I'm
Any
sorry.
opposed?
Any opposed? No.
Congratulations, Mike.
All right, so, new clerk. All right. We're gonna,
Now
we're gonna find
somebody
meetings
shut
that, all right, now, let's take a motion to adjourn. Want to
I
make a
move.
motion?
So moved.
Ann makes a motion?
Second?
Second.
Ken seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Now we are adjourned. TV can